23 is the same? No, it's not quite the
Not
same.
quite the same.
So it's-
Now it goes from 226,241 to 243,803.
That's under salaries.
Under salary, yeah, I figured we're going by section.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. all right.
I was a little confused.
Oh, you're at the total.
I was
No, I
looking
can
at-
do
I was
just
looking at the
total for the
bottom
fire
line.
department, if that's
Yeah.
easier for you. I was just going by section. if you
Great.
want.
Yeah, I was looking at bottom line.
Okay,
All right.
we can do that too.
No, that's
We can do
good.
bottom line, if you have any additional
Well,
questions in
the-
between, we can.
So the big things, it was an 8% increase overall on that salaries line item, right?
Yes, that increase for salaries.
7.76% for that total.
Yes, that's.
So the big jumps, it looks like the big jumps are this stipends. Is that normal that that would jump to 85%?
Which one?
Oh, right here.
No.
Oh, so the stipends increased because the fire department is now unionized. And part of their union contract was that they had negotiated stipends for certain certifications that they have. So basically everything that you see under the staff is all contract related. So any increases, changes is either tied back to the fire chief's contract or the union contract.
So is that, that'll be a one-time increase? That's union driven, so you would expect that line item to continue year
Yeah.
after year?
That'll be
Yep.
year after year, correct?
Okay.
But it's not gonna increase with such a high percentage year after year. It should stay pretty stable as long as we don't have any change in personnel or, you know, the only reason why that number would change is if a member of the department got an additional certification that would allow them to get another stipend. But this should be the only year that we see such a big increase.
Do we have a chart of the stipends and how they're gonna be paid out, or who they're gonna be paid to?
We have, all of the stipends are included in the contract.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure the chief has a
We have-
spreadsheet of who gets what
Yeah,
stipend.
I did not bring that to the.
That's okay.
Oh, it'd just be interesting.
Yeah.
Then the breakdown for the contract, it's all the full-time employees, not the call department section.
Okay,
So those stipends are just under the full-time,
staff.
the full-time staff.
all right, good, that's good.
Any other questions with the salary section, or can we move on to expenses? Or we can just do.
We good with expenses?
Yeah.
Are we good with salaries? Everyone's good with any questions on salaries?
I-
I'm good with salaries. You want to move on to the expenses?
So you'll notice the expenses have increased from 300,236 to 322,303. Yes. Any comments, concerns on that? That's a relatively small section.
Well, there again, we don't have a breakdown of the expenses, so we can't really tell where their increases. Probably in electric
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
heating oil.
utilities and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That's got your, the diesel fuel oil in there for the trucks. That's part of the fire expenses. That's not a separate line, right?
That should all.
I don't think that's in the fire, in this fire expenses.
So the fuel for all of town vehicles come out of the DPW budget.
Oh, that comes out of the
Okay,
DPW.
so
Okay.
we all use the same.
Okay.
Yep.
But that
Yeah.
would be the heating oil and electricity.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, utilities, okay.
Okay.
That's expenses, revenues. You comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Just moving right down the line, with the ambulance service. Would you like total, or do you want section again?
Sections.
yeah, we'll do the sections. We'll do, same thing with the, start off with the salaries.
No problem. Alright, so salaries. You see the increase from 619,234 to 600,400, 60,991. A lot of the increases, you probably noticed a big increase for overtime, and that's just us trying to fill the shifts, and to be able to fill the shifts, we have to fill with some of the full-time personnel. If it can't be filled with our per diem or call force, so it goes to overtime at that point.
And ambulance added a person in fiscal '23, correct?
I believe we added 2.
We added
Two.
2
Two
people
full-time.
in FY '22,
Yes.
and now they are, this year is their first year as full-time.
Full-time, okay. So even with the addition of the full-time people, we're still going over on the OT budget?
Yeah, so throughout the industry, it's we're all departments are having a hard time staffing per diems,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because there's such a limited amount of EMTs and paramedics in the state or even in the country right now. And so what happens most of our per diems, paramedics and EMTs, come from outside the town, and they work for different departments, and they're being held, or they get a better offer doing overtime, which they're making double than what we can pay them. So a lot of the time, or they just don't want to come in because they might get offered that overtime, or they know they might get forced in.
Okay.
And some of this is also due to the chief's absence as
Yeah.
well.
Anything else for salaries?
No?
Alright, moving to ambulance expenses. Alright. So I'll break it down under administration, right there, you'll see small jump from 52,684 to 61,400. And let's see. Part of that jump, again, supplies. Where is it? And then, I'm sorry, the uniform allowance. That, you see that big jump? Well, not big, but little jump in that, and that is also due to the contract for the full-time employees.
Is that in addition to the uniforms, in addition to what they had originally before the contract? Or-
You might be able to speak more on the uniform stuff.
The uniform allowance is a yearly allowance, and
Right.
it stayed the same.
Mhm.
Except I believe now, after a year, or full-time, if you stay for your full
Oh, your probationary
probationary
period.
period, then
Mhm.
you get a Class A uniform or a dress uniform.
Oh, I see.
So I believe the 2 newest hires will be eligible for that
Okay,
this year.
super.
And then other things like office supplies, obviously, actually that stays the same.
So in the
Telephone
contract,
games.
is that uniform yearly also?
Yeah, well, you don't get a
Yearly.
Class A
Yearly.
yearly, but you get
So
a
you
yearly
get
Yeah, they get
uniform allowance.
Yeah.
They get so much, it's just after that probationary period is up, they get that on top of it, at one time.
So that's why this is the.
Yeah, we have members,
Because
and
of
at the end of that
guys.
probation.
I believe so.
Okay.
Anything else with the administration section?
I don't think so, for me anyway.
Move down to the service contracts, which, see, it does go up slightly, but a lot of those, we have no say in, it's just what it costs.
Mhm.
Like the affiliation agreement, the license fees, Just your CMed dues, all that does get adjusted, and kind of don't have a choice in that. The defib service, the Lucas, those are ambulance items that need to be serviced annually to maintain their functionality.
Yeah, and the state requires those agreements
Yes,
or
that on top of it.
contracts.
Are those costs static? They don't fluctuate throughout the year?
Not throughout the year, but year to year, they may
Yeah.
fluctuate. So
There's just a
thi-
one-time fee for the year.
This year, they actually went up quite a bit more than they've ever been, and I think that's because of how everything has been.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the lines that are over. Do you know why it's over for 23?
I don't know why it's over. I'm assuming it was because the contract was more than what was budgeted for. That was
Okay.
just my interpretation of it.
It's not by much, it's like $727.
Yeah, it went up,
Yeah.
I do know that went up quite a bit this year.
751,
It-
yeah, okay.
Fortunately, there's no talking and negotiating with those fees.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
Say
the
that's what it is,
departments,
that's what it is.
it's across the board.
That cardiac monitor service went up 42%,
It went up quite a bit, yeah.
so that's
So we have two of them, so I think it's per unit, so it went up.
All us old people that help for us. You should.
okay, all right.
There. Not this old unit. Yeah, those are expensive units, so I'm sure they don't, the parts that go into them are pretty expensive too.
But if something needs to be repaired, that's all covered under the
Yeah, it's all
contract?
Yep,
covered on
that's-
the contract.
Flat rate, yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than having it done, it's like warranty, right, versus instead of going out and having
Yeah,
it
that's
have it
pretty
paid.
much,
Okay,
it's kind of like a little insurance policy.
that makes sense. And then ambulance billing, that cost is going up a little bit as well. The next section. Actually, does anyone have any other questions on the service contracts?
No.
And then ambulance billing, we're seeing a slight increase also.
Is that revenue?
Yes,
No.
and
Yeah.
I think that is tied to, since I want to say the billing is tied to
The amount
the
of.
amount of revenues that we get from the previous
Okay,
year.
yeah, that makes sense.
So it's like a percentage of the billing that we did. So that's why you see a $7,000 jump, is because the ambulance, especially since taking on the town of Hardwick, and having additional
The
staff,
additional staff is actually making a big
Has been-
difference.
yeah.
We're covering a lot of second calls,
Mm-hmm.
so we're able to bill a lot more.
right, so that, catch 22 is that the people who do the billing for us, is that they also want a chunk of that increased revenue as well.
Okay.
Speaking of revenue,
Yes,
do we have that? As far-
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, I have
the chi-
that,
The chief usually has a thing where we kind of balance out all these increases,
Yeah.
with the revenue that's coming in. Hopefully
so at
it's
the
gonna cover it.
bottom of the ambulance budget sheet, the chief listed out the
It's on here.
billing offset, the Hardwick
Oh, it's
contract.
the very bottom of that.
Very bottom.
Yeah, it's like underneath the
total.
totals.
I'm
You
sorry.
know, you just scroll right by it there. There you go. Underneath the last blue line. That's your revenues.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. So we have the Hardwick contract, the New Braintree contract, and then the total cost of the taxpayers.
I missed that, sorry.
And
Sorry, I should have pointed that
That's okay.
so here it does say that there's $500,000 going towards EMS billing, but before the chief left, I had talked him up to 520. So
Okay.
520.
a little bit more revenue coming out of that to help offset the budget.
All right, so the cost of the town went down.
20 grand.
If all these estimates are right.
Yeah, wow.
And then
Basically.
I can speak on how much we've built up
Yeah.
from last
Where
year,
we're at,
this
yeah.
time last year to this time.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
This year, so this time last year was 929,470.06 that we billed out, and then this year is 984,377.83 cents.
Okay.
So it's gone up quite a bit, and we think it's because of having that extra staff at the station to
Mhm.
cover those second calls instead of like calling in the mutual aid towns.
Now, do you have the numbers on, because you have the contract with Hardwick, like how many calls you were sending over to
I
them?
don't have that breakdown
Okay.
with me today.
Yeah. Okay.
but we are able to track that.
Yeah. the chief had he would give us like the breakdown of how many calls, and I think it was first responder call, was it first call, second call,
Yeah, first
Yeah.
call, second call,
And then it was-
second call that we,
third call, right? Maybe?
yeah, third call, trying to think how the graph is. Yeah, second call that we've staffed, second call that we've had to, so,
Because I think the goal was to reduce the overall number of third calls, right? Because that was something that the town usually couldn't handle.
yeah, or even second call, like, not reduce the second calls, but be able to staff that second call. Because we
Mhm.
only have 2 ambulances, so we can't do the third call as it is.
Mhm.
But with the, having a second ambulance that we couldn't staff was not helping the situation, because
Yeah.
we'd either send one person or we'd call Rutland in completely, so.
Now, how do you feel about staffing? Yeah, I know you talked about it a little bit, but you think it's going to continue to be a challenge, or you got some good full-time folks in the ambulance?
We have a lot of full-time folks that want to work on it, but I think it is going to continue being a challenge, and just the call volume too has been going up every year. The little bit I do have a breakdown of is
Yeah.
our call volume. In 2020, it was 1,189. 2021 was 1,336. 2022 was 1,446. This time last year, in 2022, we did 302 calls. And then this year, we've already done 381 calls. So it's just steadily rising across the board, and that's every town.
Right.
Mhm.
And when you think about, we have 2 ambulances, and then having an increase of over 100 calls per year, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
considerable
That's-
amount of calls that you guys have to respond to.
On one part
And
of
most of
our,
those are second ambulance calls and
Yeah.
third calls.
well, and one problem with the second and ambulance calls or third calls is the distance we are from the hospital.
Mm.
We, on an average, we're saying about a 3-hour turnaround time between initial dispatch, sitting at a hospital, or going to the call, transporting, sitting at the hospital. Sometimes our crews have been waiting at UMass for up to 2 hours,
Yeah.
and then
That's great.
returning, and then getting back in service. So we're trying, but it's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, understood.
Challenging.
And you also have emergency management, which that's just a small budget, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just from 6,056 to 6,426.
Okay. Alright. Ambulance stipends are up this year over, is that part of the CBA?
Yeah, so we recognized this shortly after the new fiscal year that we under budgeted the stipends.
Okay,
So that was just a mistake on our part.
okay. And the article for the HVAC at Station 2, so it's not part of your budget,
Yeah.
but there was the article for 18,000,
Mhm.
and you guys expense $11,236 of that, 237, let's call it. Do you feel that you're gonna be using the additional $7,000 towards the HVAC?
I will be using some more.
Okay.
Where they tore out the old unit, they had to rip out the whole ceiling,
Yes.
and they had to rip out a wall that went to the shower, so they have to repair all what they've done, and then have a bunch of holes in the walls from all the old ventilation units or ventilation ducting.
Okay,
So there'll be.
there's still additional expenses coming out
Yeah.
that line?
Yes,
Okay.
that's just because now the heating system's up and running and
Yeah,
fixed, we gotta fix what we had to.
No,
part
understood.
To get in.
just wanna make sure,
Yeah, we'll
because
definitely be using.
we're trying to keep an
that.
eye on those articles, because there's been some that are been outstanding, and we don't want them to sit out there too long, if it's already been used in full.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
Yeah, that's something I touched base with on the chief before he left, and he told me the same thing.
Okay.
That
Yeah, they're
There's
actually-
still a couple little extra repairs that need to be done.
We have some members of the department that have been working on it, so they do it after work and such, so.
Right.
And we don't anticipate any capital expenses from the fire ambulance?
The only thing that we have to do is revote the ambulance and the fire truck.
We gotta revote both of them.
Yes. In order to go forward with purchasing.
I thought
We did vote.
We
put an order
voted.
in. We didn't put the order in?
What?
Did we put the order in for the ambulance?
We put the orders are
order's
in,
in.
the contracts are signed.
But the, before we accept delivery of
Oh,
them,
okay.
which is not for a while.
Yep.
You know,
For a while.
we have
Unfortunately, too
a
long.
Have you heard,
bid.
have you heard any news on that? As far as the
No.
We
delivery?
haven't
How they're
even been
moving?
contacted for a pre-construction meeting yet.
Still 2 years.
Yeah,
For the engine, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be a while
At a
for the
minimum.
ambulance.
What about the ambulance? About
Same.
2 years,
Probably
yeah.
gonna be about the same at this point.
Okay.
So, but in order to accept delivery of those, we just need to revote them in order to be a lease purchase
I got it.
agreement. But other than that, the chief didn't submit any capital expenses to me.
Okay. You guys don't know of any CapEx that we're gonna need to?
I mean, there's
He
needs.
does want a
Yeah.
pickup truck, I know that, so.
Think he
Yeah.
pushing
It's gonna be
for it.
tight. The town's in a tough situation. I don't know if you've been following along how
Yeah.
exciting the
Yeah.
finance committees are. But, it's a tough situation right now with the budget going into '24 because of, increased labor costs. We had the increased oil, increased electricity are really crushing all the departments, and there's not enough in the levy limit right now. So one of the reasons why the town's put forward, a debt exclusion on the election coming up, trying to pull that money out of the budget to free up that volume for the next 3 years, to be able to have that additional $175,000 as part of the operating budget. I would say, my thought is that my suggestion would be, like, if we can get the town to agree at town meeting to vote to debt exclude the fire truck that needs to be revoted, because I don't really, I don't know how we would be able to pay for that out of the operating budget. $700,000, even with a 7-year lease agreement. It's gonna be a challenge. I raised those concerns last year at town meeting, that there's financial risk with approving a fire truck with having no true understanding of how to pay for it. And the town did vote to approve it, right? But if we put that into the operating budget, that's like another $150,000 a year into the operating budget over 7 years, I think, 7-year lease
For
agreement.
7 years, yep.
And top of, plus the ambulance. So that comes out to like 300,000 out of the operating budget, and that right there is over the town's levy limit. So when those roll in, the town takes delivery of those. So we have to, hopefully the town agrees, because it's just a tough year for the budget,
Yes.
very tough.
But I think that's why it's also, in some ways, good that we have to revote these things, because then that gives the opportunity to revote it to debt exclude, and open up some space, or not choke yourselves in 2 years from now.
Because right now, the town's in the situation with that capital purchase ban that has that ambulance that's already been put out of service, I believe, right? Or we still have it in
Is that
service?
A1.
A1's still in service.
Yeah,
That's
it's hobbling up and down.
Yes, it's still in
The ban.
service.
Yeah, the GMC.
But by the time we pay the ban off, it won't be in service.
Yes.
So today, but 4 years from now, it won't be in service.
Exactly.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, keep it
going,
good.
but
We'll keep it going.
And I think, one of the goals that we talked about with Chief Rogowski was, similar to what the police department has done. So the police department, the town's been voting at annual town meeting to use free cash for a cruiser every year well before I started on the committee. That doesn't give a good picture of what the police department's overall operating costs are, right? So we asked them to take that cruiser and put it into your operating budget. Similarly, looking to replace one every year, which replaces the older vehicle, which is about a 6-year rotation. And we talked with the chief about doing something similar with the ambulances on a 3-year rotation. So the ambulance gets replaced every 6 years. So basically one every 3 years. And one of the ideas was trying to figure out how to put that, to have some of that money come from the ambulance receipts, the revenue,
Yep.
and trying to restructure that.
Yeah.
and how that's done, like, to try to save some of that money
Yeah.
for at least a good portion of the ambulance. So that way, we don't have to figure out how to, what's the ambulance this year, 350?
325?
I think it was
325.
325, I think.
And that's up, the one you just received, right, that was what, 250?
Yeah.
275.
So the next
275.
one will probably be
Yeah, if it keeps going up, it's gonna be,
Yes.
$400,000 before you know it,
Big
right?
jumps.
And we already have upwards around 40,000 miles on that new ambulance.
It's over
Yeah.
50,000 miles
Yeah.
last week.
Well, that's a tough part of being in the rural, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Closest
those extra
hospital.
miles and it's just rolling all the time. too.
Yeah, and you get the revenues from Hardwick, but you're also rolling it out there more
Yeah, it's-
frequently.
It's even farther right from Hardwick.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And most of your calls just going out to Worcester, right? Is that a
Yeah,
majority?
Worcester is majority. Most people like to go to Worcester. We do go to Athol. We go to Haywood and Gardner quite a bit, but we have been going to Palmer quite a bit. And that's not just from people in Hardwick, that's from people in town, actually.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
That round trip, you're looking at like
Oh,
40, 60
I
miles.
drive it
yeah.
every
it's
day.
Yeah, it's just- yeah, the travel's, then the time lapse he's
Yeah.
talking about, you
Yeah.
2.5, 3 hours.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
no, understood.
So last year, to talk about some response data in Hardwick, I pulled up I don't have this letter for New Braintree, but they responded to Hardwick 142 times last year, with 90 of those responses being transports to a hospital.
Okay. That's a good amount. And that's still being split out, right, where it covers one portion of Hardwick?
West Brookfield
West
covers
Brookfield?
half of it,
Okay.
yep, half the town.
But it is still.
It's still primarily us, you guys.
Oh,
that's
Yeah.
what's right, yeah.
And then, and we still do all of New Braintree, so we
Mhm.
don't go there a ton, but.
Yep.
Enough.
So you'll be prepared to, because we have to be another article at town, right?
I've already taken care of, because
Okay.
we're gonna do it at the special town.
Okay,
So I've already, sent it off to our attorney to help make sure that we have the correct language, so we don't have any more issues with the fire truck and the ambulance.
and special town is on the 25th of
25th,
April?
yeah. 25th, Tuesday, 6:30 PM.
So you want to make sure you want to be there, present,
Yeah.
answer any
Probably a
questions.
good
Yeah. I'm sure the questions so I know the answer, but can you let everyone know the exact reason we need to revote it?
Yes, so it comes down to a technicality. Back when it was voted, we had a different attorney, and back in 2016 or 2019, there's something called the Municipal Modernization Act that said if a community wants to lease purchase a piece of equipment, they have to vote it a certain way. And we did not vote it that way, and since we picked up a new attorney in the period of time from when it was voted and the time that we needed to sign the contract, our new attorney said, this is not the correct way and you need to revote it. So that's where we are.
So long as we have a good turnout.
Hopefully.
Knock on wood.
I don't have any questions. You guys have any questions? I mean,
Get most of them answered.
Yeah.
Well, I have one. I knew Chief Rogowski, but you guys don't have your names on your uniform. Oh, you do, deputy.
Scott Fritcher.
Scott,
I'm actually the acting fire chief in Chief Rogowski's military deployment. Durham.
And I'm James C. Virgilio. I'm the captain or full-time fire inspector, but right now I'm the acting assistant chief.
James Wood.
D. Virgilio.
Right.
Part of the chief's deployment plan for the department was some upward movement, bumping up for people covered now, basically.
mhm.
Good.
We have
So,
a big hole with a chief around.
Yeah.
We're trying to fill.
How long is the chief gone for?
probably at least a year,
A year?
right around a year. So James is actually handling the day-to-day operations because he's one of the full-timers. I'm helping out up to 20 hours a week, station-wise, in meetings. And we also had a firefighter step up to the inspector position, which James was holding, just so there's no lapse in getting inspections done too.
Inspections are revenue too.
They are,
Yeah.
Plenty of those too.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah, thank you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
very much. Enjoy. Good seeing you.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah, thank you guys. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when we designed this interim plan for the chief being gone, we kept it as close to the difference of the chief's salary as well. So there shouldn't be any increased cost due to him being deployed. So basically being a part of the military, he gets paid from the military for his service, and that is offset with his salary here. So he's taking home the same amount of money that he did while he was here as the fire chief. We just aren't covering the full freight of it.
Just the difference.
Just the difference, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, you have a question, Sam? No? Okay. Okay. All right, moving on. Dispatch had to cancel, correct?
Correct, they didn't have, their budget really wasn't ready anyways. He didn't have final, let's just say his projected, budget was much higher than what we spent this year. Because he didn't have, certain numbers like health insurance and the union contract still being negotiated. So he sent a pretty high budget to begin with, and when I talked to him today, none of those numbers really moved. So I think anything that he would have presented to you would have not been, reality anyways.
Okay, and do you?
I have,
What was, on his budget, what was that adjustment? Maybe you could explain this adjustment he had in there? On that.
I can try.
He had a 23 adjusted, it was a big number.
Oh, let me
I
just
didn't-
pull that up real quick. And I think I know what you're talking about, and I can explain it a little bit. Are you talking about on the last page?
Yeah.
Yep. So, the adjusted, right. So I think this kind of goes back to what I was just saying, that this original presented budget that he had for us isn't the reality of what we would pay. So what he came to the town with was $158,000, and then it was adjusted later on in the budget process when he confirmed the state 911 grant revenue, and he confirmed, usually it's the health insurance that kind of holds them up, but some other numbers he was able to confirm, which led to an adjusted budget number of $126,012. But what we ended up actually finally paying this year was $116,000, and that was because he ended up getting some revenue that he didn't even know about prior to the annual town meeting. So, we do have a little bit left over in that account. But again, then you look towards FY24, and the FY24 number looks pretty similar to the FY23 number. It's about $8,000 more. So we know that's not going to be where we end up. And I think that's just going to be another one of those budgets that we'll have to wait and see what else comes in for the revenue, which I anticipate the director's salary and the deputy director's salary be included in that grant revenue that they get. So we should see a big decrease in that 166 number.
Is the town administrator our representative in dispatch negotiations and so forth, or not?
There is no representative from any town.
We still haven't,
No.
oh, man.
Well, that was something that when they created the dispatch, if they had created a district model, it would have been more representative.
Right.
And each community would have a little bit more of a say.
Yes.
But now, with the current model that it is, it's kind of like us and our ambulance agreements. We just say like, this is what it's gonna cost you this year, and they don't really have much of a say on what that number
I think
is.
we were told it was a regional dispatch, it just didn't set it up.
It's a regional
Right.
dispatch, but it's not a district.
Oh.
The district is the model that would have given us basically a seat at the table, kind of like the school committee with the regional school district. We did revisit the agreement to try and
Yeah.
address some of the issues that all of the towns feel could improve with the dispatch, but at the end of the day, it's still in Rutland's hand of saying like, here's our number and here's your assessment. Either, and I've been saying this since I started here, that
I know.
like at some point this revenue is not going to be here anymore. So I just
Yeah, when the
I'm
grants
really,
go away, it's gonna be an astronomical number.
I am concerned because I don't know, because I'm not on
Yeah.
that side of it. Like I don't know when these grants are going to fall off. You know, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 2 years. Like I don't know, and I think that should be a big concern for the community going forward. Is, but there's no other option, right? Because now that we're in a regional dispatch, we cannot get out of the regional dispatch. It's
Not for another, 18 years, because it was a 25-year contract?
well, not we can get out of this regional dispatch, but we have to go to another regional dispatch.
Oh, okay.
The state won't let us go regress and go back to our in-house dispatch. We have to stay. So our only option would be to move to another regional dispatch.
And you can't change it to a district model or a district model?
It could change to a district model. It could. But I think it would take a lot of pressure from all of the select boards in the towns to push for a district model.
Well, if those grants go away, I'm sure there will be money of.
If those grants go away, there will be
But the good news is, right, I think last year they talked about radios, but that was all taken care of with the
ARPA.
ARPA funds.
Yes.
So where the police and fire are good to communicate, and that's not gonna be that other expense that the town needs, right?
Yep. Yeah. So that was one of the things that we brought up when we talked about some issues we have with the dispatch, is that our chiefs have been saying for years we need new radios. The radios are getting old, and then this year we finally got to a point where they're like, okay, we have to do something now, and we luckily had ARPA to supplement it, but the kind of response that we would keep getting when we would ask dispatch about this, it would just be like, oh, we applied for a grant, we applied for this grant, and that just continuously kicks the issue down the road until, like, at some point you have to forget the grant and just pay the freight for the product, or your service is gonna be impacted by it.
No,
So
understood.
that's fine.
Council on Aging, right?
Yes.
You wanna come on up? Well, because the microphones are here, so it would be better,
For the viewers at home.
Come on.
for the viewers at home. How's everything going?
Okay.
Good? Yeah.
That's good.
Everything going good down there? Senior center?
Busy.
Busy? Yeah.
Busy.
Well, that's good news. Right? Because with COVID, everything, it kind of turned things upside down, so you're back on track.
Getting there, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
We did lose a lot of folks.
Yeah. But I see you guys are doing a lot, like on your social media pages and stuff, a lot of events, and that's always good. How are we looking? So I'm looking at your budget. Seems like a modest 7% increase, right? 7.84%. You want to take us through?
What do you want to know?
What do we want to know?
Let's see.
I don't want to ask all the questions.
A lot of
It's
no.
okay.
So there's no more
Go ahead.
elder bus transport?
What's that?
There's no more elder bus transport? Is that what I'm looking at?
No, they haven't provided transportation since COVID. They stopped.
So that the programs like the elder nutrition program, the community programs.
Yeah, that was a donation.
Okay.
It's not a mandatory.
Okay.
Wasn't a mandatory thing. The Algebus was, it was a fee that was paid, or a stipend that was paid to somebody that helped folks unload their groceries.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
And you have an outreach coordinator as well?
Yes. Last year, we increased her hours. 'Cause, Hardwick was paying for her hours, it was only 40 hours a month. And then Barre supplemented, so we were able to make her add almost another 40, so she's doing like 19 hours a week
Okay.
right now. 'Cause it's just me.
Yeah,
Myself and
you holding down the fort over there. I see the, electricity is pretty much the same as everybody, right? Electricity's
Yeah.
going up, oil's going up.
Yeah, I had it was filled twice, and each time, one was $1,100 and one was $1,300. And that was in a 2-week period. It came twice in 1 month, yeah.
Wow. And that's on the same rate as the rest of the town, right?
Yeah, I believe so,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
That's contracted.
Hey, Dan, I don't, what budget are you looking at?
The council on
It says
aging?
COA.
Yeah.
COA?
At the tab at the bottom, it's in between
Is that the
recreation
one that
committee and
comes out
select board.
121 for fiscal year 24?
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's 121,
Correct.
121,000,
Yep,
and it was 102
correct.
last year.
Mm-hmm.
That 7% is wrong.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
That's a 20% increase.
Yeah, I guess what you are correct.
I noticed that too.
The formula's wrong.
I was gonna say the
Formula.
formula must be wrong.
I can't even get on that cell.
You can put that on. Where is page 43?
Something's wrong with that cell. Can't get the. Yeah, so yeah, more like 18% increase.
Hmm.
Well, the subtotal's at 28.24, right? Increase. Printing's up. Postage. No, I show postage as blank on this request.
I don't know what,
Okay.
I'll just go upstairs.
HVAC. Let me see here. Have you, and you still operating the same hours as you normally down there? Is it like 12 to 8 to 12 or something?
No, I'm there usually from 8 till about 3.
Okay.
Sometimes 4, sometimes later, sometimes on the weekend, sometimes at night.
Yeah, that's, in line for 23. It's,
I haven't raised my budget in 4 years,
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
5 years.
The concern that, we're reiterating to everyone is the cost of electricity, the cost of oil, labor increases and all that. It's, I'm sure you heard it when it was the fire department. The budget's in a tough spot this year, and we're not the only town. Every town in the area is in the same exact situation. So it's gonna be
That's great.
hard figuring this out between now and town meeting. So we'll have the public hearing prior to, 2 weeks prior to figure out what we can do. A big part of it will be to see if the voters approve the debt exclusion, because if not, we're gonna have to, there's really only other option is figure out where to trim services, and we don't wanna do that. The town doesn't wanna do that. Nobody wants to do that. But there's limited options. So that's where we're at. It'll be on the voters. Anybody have any questions?
Well, my only question is, do you have any numbers or report about participation as far as the number of people that are actually?
For the total participation, It's 100 and, what was it, 174, 194. So Barre had 126 or something like that, and then the rest was Hardwick. But that doesn't include people that just come in. That doesn't include phone calls,
Mhm.
which are huge.
Oh, yeah,
We
sure.
get a lot of
Well, I
phone
imagine
calls.
it is, because people aren't mobile, which is.
And then we have a lot of folks just coming in, you know, that don't clock in. I try to put them in,
Yeah.
you know, as folks come in, but it's
Mhm.
not always easy.
But you see the numbers rising?
Yes,
Yeah. So that's the thing.
significantly.
Good.
I did do an outreach project back in December and January, where I had the newsletter printed by the Barre Gazette, and it was inserted into 2,500. So it went to 2,500 households, so that has really increased our participation, I think.
And you get grants as well? Is there a grant, I recall?
Yes.
And-
It's Elder Affairs, Executive Office of Elder Affairs, EOEA,
Mhm.
provides all the councils on aging, senior centers, a grant that is based on population.
Okay.
So our population for Barre went from a little under 1,000 to almost 1,500.
Oh.
And then Hardwick went from almost 800 to, they jumped to 1,000. So, so between the two communities, that's 2,500 people that we reach out to and try to, you know, participate, engage.
Good.
And it's also, is it a stipend or a grant you get from Hardwick as well for covering their services?
Their formula grant pays for the outreach person.
Okay. I think we asked this last year, like, why don't we include that in their budget, like, to show the overall offset?
Because it doesn't offset the budget, right? It
Right.
just goes towards programming.
Goes towards programming.
Okay.
So it's similar to the library, right?
Mhm.
We can't use their state funding to offset our budget. It has to go towards like a separate, something that's
Okay.
not within the budget.
So that's specific to just the programs you run
Yes.
there? Okay. All right, understood.
So I mean, you can technically make an argument that it does offset the budget, but we just don't include what it
Yeah.
covers in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's good to highlight that stuff, though. You know, just so that way, like, when you have these conversations, for anyone that does tune in, is aware, you know, of the other funds that you're bringing into the department for the cover the cost of the programs. Because I feel that not enough departments highlight their wins, right? Like, oh, we're also getting X amount of dollars from here and X amount of dollars here.
I've applied for other grants as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural Council, I received a grant from the Fallon Foundation to pay for meals last summer for folks, so they could eat for free.
Oh, nice.
To help with food insecurities. So, you know, it's different things that,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's great. Anything that can help, right? You know, help the community and, you know, ease the burden of the taxpayers, which is always hard
definitely.
when you look at it from the high level. Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Anybody have, Eric, you good over there?
Good.
You good? Irina, you have anything? Irina's on, I apologize, she's our new member, so this is our first meeting today. And getting thrown right into the mix of that. Mhm. You're good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too.
Is Joe coming in?
He is going to come in at 8 because they had a couple of illnesses at the library, and if he were to leave, he would have to close the library.
Okay.
So, but I knew since we had a lot on our agenda that we would be here after 8.
Yeah.
So I just told him to come in once he closes, so he will be here a little bit. I told Ellen to be ready for 7.
Okay.
So, See,
Joe.
we're right on time.
We'll wait for Jason too.
Yes, I told Jason, Jason was a little bit later, just because of the dispatch as well.
Okay.
So, but we can start going over some revenue numbers and general budget. So right now, if you just want to pass like this whole thing down to the end.
Nice, okay. Packet.
So right now, our bottom line number doesn't look too bad, but that's
whole
also
thing.
because I was
All
missing the
pages.
DPW budget and the town clerk's budget.
We're all gonna get one.
It's a packet.
We're cutting back on staples.
Yeah.
I hate staples. I hate staples.
Oh goodness, we got a jumble down there.
Oh, no. No, that's okay. So it should be 3 pages. I know, it's pretty small just because of the, you know,
Trying to fit it in.
Yeah,
I'm trying to save paper,
Yeah.
trying to fit it
I
all
get it.
Well,
in.
thank you for saving paper. Well, let's get a duplex printer, then we can print on both sides.
Yes, I know. Well, you know what? My printer was actually out of ink. That's how much I'm trying to save here. So I had to go down
Thank you.
to Ellen, and this next one I'm passing around is 1 page. So just take one and pass it down.
do you have that in the file yet, the Excel?
I haven't shared it yet, but I will.
Okay.
Because I've just been looking at this and working on it literally every day to try and make it work.
Do we have one more?
Oh, one more? Yep. I thought I had enough.
One more coming down.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So the revenues for the next fiscal year they're looking a little bit better than the previous year. You know, the government aid isn't as robust as we would like it, but the MMA is working pretty diligently to bring that number up, and the unrestricted general government aid is what we get from the state of Massachusetts to help fund our operating budget. The largest portion of our budget, of our revenue, I should say, comes from our levy. So if you see at the top, we have our prior year levy limit. 2.5 increase is by statute all we're allowed to increase. Then we have new growth, which means any tax revenue that we get from new houses, decks people put on their houses, new garages, like any improvement to your property that the building department and the assessors capture as new growth. That's where that number comes from. And then we have our debt override or exclusions, we should call those more appropriately, that help offset the 2 debt exclusions that we have for the Ruggles Lane roof and windows and the common project for the municipal override.
That includes the capital ban too, correct?
Not yet.
Not, that's right, that's correct,
yet.
that's right.
I do have a separate sheet that does include that if
Okay.
in the event that passes. But for right now, we have to think about what we have available to us. And then I think what we see as a little bit of a change and an increase in revenues is we have a really excellent new treasurer collector, and so not only is our current treasurer collector excellent and ambitious, but the person who we had previously in the interim role, she was very seasoned in her role, and she was pretty aggressive in going after some excise tax, fees, charges. So they together have been pretty aggressive on trying to collect as much money as we can outside of the property tax world. So excise, we saw a pretty big increase in excise this year. Another increase in revenues that I would like to draw attention to is the water and sewer. So in years past, we have level funded our indirect cost allocation to the water and sewer departments, but the Division of Local Services has recommended and given us a formula back in 2019 on how to accurately establish what indirect costs are to the community, or to the enterprise funds. So I've been fine tuning those numbers as best as I can, trying to attach as much data as I can to those numbers to really reflect the cost of the service that, you know, we provide to the water and sewer
So we're
departments.
doubling them? We're doubling those?
A little
Pretty
bit more
much.
than doubling.
Yeah.
And then the other increase to those revenues include the retirement costs, because as we indicated earlier in our session, or a couple weeks ago, our retirement cost has gone through the roof, but it's not something that is borne entirely by our general fund. It is also something that is shared by the full-time employees who work for water and sewer, and then Jason and Shannon are shared employees across those three across the three departments. So there's also a portion of that goes towards that. So those costs increase significantly for the water and sewer as well. So that's why you see at the bottom we have a $13.469 million in revenue, and I have at the bottom, now I'm going to switch over to our general fund operating budget, the sheet with all of the tiny writing. So here you'll see we have our department head request, the town administrator recommendation, and then the FY24 with COLAs. So if we were to add a 2% COLA, like what would that look like? So at the end of the day, if we added a 2% COLA, we have $13.458 million, which comes in less than the 13.469 revenue, which you would think is like, oh wow, that's great. We're in the green. But I also, the town clerk's budget is still to be presented, and the DPW budget is still to be presented as well. And I know that there's going to be some significant costs there that eclipse that difference between the revenue and the expenditures. Mainly just because, as we've established, expenses are going up. We are going into a big election year this year, so we can expect the election expense to go up pretty significantly. And the fuel budget, I mean, we had to cut the fuel budget this year due to what happened with the annual town meeting last year. But we did that full well knowing that we were going to blow through that fuel account. Because fuel has just gone through the roof. So health insurance, I am working with our health insurance rep to lower the cost of our health insurance by 2 points, which would help obviously bring that cost down for both employees and for the town. And as we've discussed, in the event that the capital improvement ban is debt excluded, that would open up $171 roughly $1,000 for the operating budget. But I do want to point out also that I moved a couple of things from the budget, some of the budgets that have already been presented. I've moved a couple of those things as a recommendation for free cash. So and they're both under the police department budget. And this was something that will not come up at special town meeting, but at annual town meeting, if the finance committee and the select board agree to move forward with these recommendations. So we have under the police department, the chief had budgeted about $7,000 for details to the 250th event. So I recommended that we move those costs to free cash, because this is essentially, it's a one-time cost. There's going to be a little bit that trickles over into FY25, but this isn't something that's going to be reoccurring, so I didn't feel like it should take up space in the operating budget when we could use that money elsewhere. And the same thing for the Bridge Academy under the training line item. In FY '24, the state will be offering its last Bridge Academy to police officers. So after FY '24, it will never be available anymore. And the chief budgeted $9,000 to send 3 of the officers to that Bridge Academy, which they need in order to continue to be a police officer. So I also recommended that since that is a one-time cost, it will never be reoccurring, that we use free cash to supplement that expense. There's also a expectation that the state will reimburse us for that $9,000 as well. So hopefully at the end of the day, it's a wash. And then something else that I wanted to point out was that even though I'm trying to negotiate with the health insurance company to decrease our rates, I did add an additional almost $20,000 to the health insurance line item due to the whoever comes in as the next town administrator will likely be taking the health insurance plan, which is something that I've never taken from the town. So that is, I budgeted it as if this new person is coming in with a full family and taking the most expensive plan. Because we don't know at this point what that will look like. So I made a couple of side notes on that, which is also why this print is so small.
So there's, I see.
And so in this budget, Jessica, this has, like the town clerk and the DPW are basically level funded, so it doesn't have their, plus the COLA line has a 2% or 2.5%, but everything, that's just based off of last year.
I think the COLA is only 2%.
2%, okay.
Yeah. And that's just based off of last year's salaries. And so yes, and that's why I say right now the revenues versus the expenditures looks pretty good. But I know with what we're going to see from the town clerk and the DPW tonight that this is not going to look as good after we're done here.
And what do you have the school in here at, right? Because I know we don't have their exact numbers either.
Yeah, so that is also the huge the huge piece of the budget that we don't know anything about because state revenues are so up in the air. But what I did was I budgeted 5% increase over what we approved at the last town meeting. So if we want to remember correctly, at the last town meeting, we approved more than what we ended up getting assessed. So we approved 6.2 million and we were assessed $6,047,000. So what I did was I added 5% on top of that, just as kind of like what I would say I think is reasonable. So in the event that the state revenue numbers come back really well, that number might go down, but I don't anticipate it.
Any questions on revenue or expenditures before we move on?
Gotta see some more, accurate, exact numbers. It's gonna mean more, especially the school. I mean,
The
57,
school is the biggest.
56% of the budget now.
Yep.
So,
Actually, it's 51% of the budget.
51.9. If you look at the overall bottom line.
When you add the Monty Tech in there, it's a little bit more. Or is it?
Monty
It's
Tech-
51.9 with Monty Tech.
If you take the school number and divide it by our total operating budget, it's 51.9. If you take
that's all.
Quabbin by itself, it's 49% of the operating budget. So I mean, it's a big region,
Yeah, sure.
But they'll be next
April
meeting?
11th.
April 11th. So next meeting, the school will be coming back. I'm not sure if they'll have their
It's the
numbers.
last, yeah, it's the last department meeting that the finance committee has, but I don't know how, what their outlook is on when they will feel like they have a realistic number.
Yeah, I wasn't able to make the last, they invited us to the last subcommittee budget meeting, and I had life occurring. Wasn't able to make it. Jason, I think we're ready for you, sir.
Ready for me?
Yeah,
I'm on that.
yeah, because, well, Joe got sidetracked, so you kind of bumped up, and
Oh.
dispatch couldn't make it, so
Excellent.
we're flying through today. How are things going?
Good.
Yeah, same busy? Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, plenty busy, never ends.
Yeah. So I did forward it out, the budget you sent. So I think, I mean, you didn't get it. Or you guys can work off of
I
that.
got it.
Let me see, yeah. What do you want to go through first? You want to go through the DPW stuff?
Yeah, highway stuff?
Yeah,
Whatever-
highway,
whatever-
yeah, highway, yeah.
Yep.
Start with the highway, because that's the big one, right?
Jason,
do
you
that.
look like you got another copy there.
Well, just one of each. You need it?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, that's
I can
okay.
give it to you, Brian, if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't need it, I guess, but.
Well, you need it.
Well,
to
you
look
gotta
at.
talk about it.
Yeah, you better.
No, no, you
better.
You can have it.
man, you must have sent it as,
I emailed it out. Yeah. Well, it was probably, I had to work today, so I mean, it was probably like
It's all right.
5:45, you
It's
know?
all right.
So basically what we did is we don't have any numbers. We're current in union negotiations for salaries. Nothing's been approved by the select board as of yet that I'm aware of for a dollar amount to be able to go with. It's been talked about multiple times about the pay scale that we have for our employees in town. We have a lot of turnover. We have a lot of people that leave the town of Barre to go to many other places, you know, usually for jobs with a lot less responsibility for a lot more money. So that's something that's been talked about for many, many years, and now as everything in the past year or two has just gotten significantly worse. We currently have 2 positions that are not filled. You know, we don't have any applicants for a position that's been out for over 8 months. We haven't had one applicant for it.
Wow.
So
And that's the, is that the driver?
it is truck driver labor. So right now,
Okay.
truck driver labor's out, and our master mechanic has retired. He retired this year. So, yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a tough one to get, too.
Yeah, it's a tough one to get. So we're currently working on that, trying to get those positions filled. In the budget, you can see the numbers jumped up pretty significantly in here. Again, these are all just kind of hope and dream numbers, but we did do a comparison study just in-house of surrounding towns
Oh,
for
good. That's
our
what
pay.
that
The next closest one to us is 10% more pay. And then if you go to towns like Athol and Orange, it's more like 15 to 18% more that they get paid in those communities than they do in the town of Barre. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the labor market is, that's the way it is today everywhere.
Right.
Any-
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, like, we haven't done anything. Our budget has been level funded as long as I've been here. Like, it has never increased at all except for salaries and the fuel system, you know, has gone up. We did increase maintenance stuff for equipment and stuff like that. Those have gone up, but very, very slightly just because. So, that's where we're at. So, it depends, like, say, these items are up, roughly, like, the overall budget's up like 20% is what it was. I know last year our budget got cut at town meeting, and that was a level funded budget that had gotten cut to us on top of already, you know, being in deficit. So,
I think the hope was to try to get that back with free cash.
That's still a possibility.
It's still a possibility. Because we got special, so Jessica, on that, were we gonna try to refill that dollars with free cash, or was it gonna be applying the free cash to the capital ban, and then just kind of running?
Yep, so we're gonna apply the free cash to the capital ban, but then also, a lot of the expenditures are gonna be offset by the, what we've saved, because the school budget ended up coming in lower than what we had to vote it at. So that's where, a lot of the offset is gonna come in as well.
Because we have, so that's why, like, the missing person, that's what, is that relate to the reason of, like, the OT, PT, or is that?
Well, the OT issue that we have currently, that was because we looked for 3 seasonal employees, and we have 1 seasonal employee that comes back every year. We have 0 applicants for that position as well. So, obviously, we're gonna get cemeteries and stuff ready in time for Memorial Day and stuff like that, and keep them decent throughout the year in parks and commons and things. So if we have 1 person, then what to do, the guys they were good enough to come in and work overtime on Fridays to try to make
Yeah.
up the difference. And obviously, to do that is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
One thing with that, it is expensive in that department, but we do have a pretty significant excess in the other department because
Yeah.
we didn't pay any employees.
Yeah.
So what we'll probably have to do is, move some things around to
Yeah.
balance it out.
It's a shell game.
It is, unfortunately, yeah. If we just get people that want to work, that would be a great thing.
Yeah.
So what would you, from your point of view, like, what do you think the ideal salary is, or rate to start for, like, one of your workers? Because you said
Well,
15 minutes.
like right now, truck driver laborer, truck driver skilled laborer, so they have, their CDL, they have hydraulics license and all that stuff. They start at, I think it's barely $20,
Okay.
And, I don't know if you remember last year, Miola's Ice Cream in Holden, they had a sign inside the building, scoop ice cream for $25 an hour. So,
Yeah.
it's kind
That's
of.
part-time.
Yeah, that's part-time.
No
Yeah, I
benefit.
agree.
I think even Duncan had a sign, they're hiring people like $18 an hour, right?
So, yeah, McDonald's, I think, is $17 an hour, so, it's tough. So, I
Yes.
mean, I think we at least, at a minimum, need to be starting the skilled laborers and truck drivers, mid-20s, $24, $25 an hour. And even that's gonna be on the lower side, but we just have to hope, because of the stability of working for municipality, that it's beneficial for them,
Mhm.
But you can't blame somebody for not wanting to take a $20 an hour job when they can go somewhere for $30+ an hour for the exact same licenses and everything they need for here.
Yeah.
And the other thing, we usually, if we're fully staffed, we don't offer overtime, during the summer months. We do, obviously, in the wintertime, snow and ice stuff is overtime, but,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the snow and ice is, that ran over.
right. I think that always does.
Yeah.
I actually forgot to print that out, so I don't know where that is.
Yeah, so that's been pretty much a flat rate, right? The 128 is the budget.
Right, that's never been changed. From what I was told, if you up it, you can never go back on it. So they keep it low so that they have
Yeah.
money to play in the budget, and then they just fund that after the fact.
Right now, it's expended, it's 196,357.80. It's roughly 67,706.80 over the original out there, and that covers both the OT as well as the snow removal.
Right. And just to put that a little bit in perspective is, when we go out to bid for salt with the state, under the state contract, we ask for 2,500 ton. And with 2,500 ton, that puts us at $200,000 of an expense just right there with salt. That's with nothing else. That's no sand, that's no parts, that's no plow blades, anything like that. So we're lucky they haven't up to this point held us to having to buy what we say we're gonna buy, but that's on average, that's usually what we are.
Okay.
This winter, obviously, has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, these little ice storms and stuff like that, they do eat a lot of material. Whereas a snowstorm, there's more man hours, so you pay with overtime, but less
Yeah.
material. The ice storms, they're not necessarily as long, but you burn a lot more material, so it kind of does balance out.
And how does that work with like scheduling and everything like that with the snow and ice? Is it, if there's a storm, you guys just go out and plow and,
Yep.
and sand until it's done?
Until it's done. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Must get tough some storms, huh?
Some storms,
Yeah.
yeah, when they're multiple day storms, it gets tough. Obviously, we try to get the guys a little bit of sleep here and there if we can, but.
And you don't subcontract out
We
at
don't.
all?
We
It's
do
all
everything
in-house?
in-house, yeah.
Okay.
I saw you on Washburn Road.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah, I have my own route that I plow every storm, so. Yep, that's a nice road
That's
to plow.
that's rough
Yeah.
on, that's rough on blades.
Yeah, exactly, that road's a little bit rough. I have that on the list for possibly doing some this year, so.
And fuel oil, that's everyone's
Fuel,
big, right?
yep.
Fuel oil, all that stuff.
Jess, you know when we go out to bid for the fuel, for diesel fuel and stuff?
So we're doing a joint procurement with CMRPC again, so
Mhm.
that'll happen sometime over the summer.
Over the summer?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that something like July is when they try to do it, or that doesn't necessarily go by fiscal year bid stuff? for
I
now?
just got the email from him about a week ago,
Okay.
and he was just trying to make sure that all the same communities are interested.
Mhm.
So that tells me that they're gearing up to do it. I would say to expect a new contract by July.
By July, okay.
What's the current rate? Was that like, any idea? You pay per gallon?
It's not that much less than
That's up to
what it is at the
Like
moment.
$4 or $5 a gallon?
And I'm not
I
sure.
believe there's a markup.
I was gonna say, I think there is it fluctuates with the
Yeah,
rate of fuel.
The
right?
New
'Cause
York Pure.
It's not,
Yeah.
you don't lock in at.
Yeah.
Like if that was the case, it would be golden.
Exactly.
In the past, before all of the fuel escalations happened, we were able to
That's
lock
how
in.
it used to be.
But now that the fuel is so uncertain, they don't do locked-in prices anymore.
Yeah, and-
Which, you know what, we might not want a locked-in price
Right.
either, because that
Never
could be
know.
higher than,
Right.
the next day
It
it
is.
plummets
It is
and,
definitely a gamble.
yeah.
Do we keep track, like, how much, because the fire department said that they come out of the fuel budget for the DPW.
Yep.
Do you keep track of like what goes
I
to
do.
those guys, and do
Yep.
you know what the breakdown is
I
approximately?
don't have it, we just installed a new fuel system down there, because the other one was from mid-90s, and the reports that we used to be able to do were really time-consuming and hectic to do
Yeah.
that. The new system, it's very simple, we can go in and we can look at each department individually very
Oh, that's
simply
cool.
on the computer, so it's gonna be a lot easier to keep track of.
Yeah.
We used to do it once a year, and kind of go and see
Yeah,
where there's this, we can do it progressively, we can just go in and see, oh, this is what they use this month, that's what
Okay.
they use this month. So we do have a breakdown, I don't have the current breakdown.
Yeah.
Of how much they actually use, but that's for all highway, water, sewer, police, fire.
Okay, the police are
All-
there too,
yeah,
okay.
all municipal vehicles come out of that fuel. Obviously, we don't have any gasoline stuff, so when you look at gasoline, pretty much that's 100% police. The only thing we have with gasoline is lawnmowers, and they
Mhm.
use some, but not
yeah,
whole.
no, not a ton, not compared to the cruises.
Right.
Now, does it differentiate between, the snow and ice, like when you fuel up for snow and ice, does that come out of that budget, or does it come out of the fuel
No, that
budget?
just comes out of fuel budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that might skew the DPW numbers, because you
Right.
guys are more,
Right, no,
during the
that-
winter.
All the fuel, even for snow and ice, just comes out of the fuel budget,
Okay.
so it doesn't get separated.
Okay.
Okay. And with the snow and ice, do you have, so, because I mean, I might be saying this incorrectly, but you have folks that plow that also are like out of the water and sewer department?
Exactly, yep.
And does that get broken out as well? So like
It
they
does.
plow snow and
Yep,
ice?
so when water department personnel plow snow and ice, on their time card, it's marked snow and ice.
Okay.
The overtime comes out of the snow and ice budget, not the water department budget.
Okay,
So, and it actually works like that as well for the highway guys. If there is a sewer issue or a water issue, where we call in highway guys to assist us,
Mhm.
their overtime comes out of the corresponding budget, either water or sewer.
Okay.
So that doesn't come out of the highway overtime budget.
so when there was like that water main break, that all
Exactly.
comes out of the
All the
water
highway guys in
anyways?
there, all comes out of water.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool.
Yep.
Mhm. That answers that. With the highway, we still have those pesky articles.
Yep. Not as many, right?
Yeah, no, we did a really good job
Yeah.
getting them cleaned up.
The trucks, I think, are pretty much the only two large ones left in there, right? And those are supposed to be delivered within the next month or two. We had those on order 2.5 years ago now, I think, that you guys approved the purchase of 2 new pickups. And
Did the trucks come out? I think the trucks did come out.
they were on there last time you.
Oh, they're on, you know what, they were on the sewer and the water.
Right, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
water and sewer, yeah, they wouldn't be on here.
Yeah. What about the old bridges one?
Um,
You get a few of those less slow from, I know we brought it to your attention a couple
yeah,
years
the
ago.
bridge, I think we cleaned up all the sidewalk ones
Yep.
this past season. so
The
those
sidewalks
should
look
go-
great, by the way.
Yeah, that's
they're
good.
looking really
Glad
good.
you like 'em. A lot of people like them, I think.
Yeah.
So we cleaned all those up. The bridge stuff, we do have some stuff we need to do on some bridges, I think we spoke of. We
Mhm.
have not done them yet.
Okay.
So this season, hopefully we'll be able to get rid of some of those,
Mhm.
because we're gonna use those for the maintenance that we need to do on the
Yeah.
bridges that we have.
Because I think, like with the town, in my opinion, is after like learning all this stuff, you know, the town started that capital stabilization, and you know, my guess is when they built these bridge articles, that's what they were trying to do. It probably wasn't the best method of it. It
Yep.
really should have been a stabilization fund that was rolling
Right.
and put money in when you have, rather than have an article that's sitting out there, because the article is very specific, right?
Right. Right.
So maybe we can get back to when the town gets additional funds,
Right.
if ever. You know, building up.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. Save those stabilization accounts that we started, like that capital stabilization account and stuff. In terms of highway, before we move on to water and sewer, any other, you expecting like any equipment needs or capital requests coming up?
Capital
Or
requests we've asked for every time is a new loader.
the loader, yeah.
We have one that's a 98 that's in very, very rough condition. Mechanically, it's a good machine, just the thing has lived its life in the salt, and there's pretty much nothing left of it. If we don't end up getting a new one fairly soon, it's gonna be pretty expensive for repairs. We nurse it along, the kind of thing just kind of sits there, and that's our backup. It loads trucks,
Yeah.
and, you know, kind of just stays at the yard. I know there was one selectman before that was kind of, didn't understand why we needed 2 loaders, but during a snowstorm, one loader is out plowing the whole uptown area, the common area, all the side streets is done with a loader because of, you know, the large parking areas and all the little nooks and crannies. It's a lot more convenient to do it with that. And the other loader stays at the DPW to load trucks. So if we don't have 2 loaders, one of those things has to go away. And also, you know, if something breaks, you know, we have a backup. You know, we're not stuck with no way to load trucks and no way to move big snow piles and things along. I mean, not that we get big snow piles anymore, but
Yeah.
we will again someday, I'm sure. So, the loader is our biggest need for highway at this point.
Okay.
It's, like I say, it's, anytime you guys wanna stop down and take a look at it, you're more than welcome to. I have made the selectmen go look at it during our DPW meetings and stuff, and it's very rough.
Rough shape, yeah.
There's not much left.
And that's the one that, refresh my memory, that was like, was it like 200,000 approximately?
When I first started asking for it, it was 190,
Oh, yeah.
and now it's up over 260 for that loader.
And that's, now is there an opportunity to get like, kind of like we did with the truck, like the last 10-wheeler, to get something that's used, or?
It's possible, it's definitely possible, I'm not against the used market. The thing is, with used equipment right now, if you get something that is fairly decent, you know, that's a few years old, you know, something that's not more than 5 or 6 years old, you're paying so close to what we would pay as a municipality to buy a new one.
Mhm.
You know, we're only talking difference of $10,000, you know, $20,000. And then we got a brand new machine with a warranty, where most of the new stuff now, all their services up to, you know, 1,000 hours is included in the purchase, and they come and service them. You know, they send all the oil out for samples, and they do everything that, no cost to us.
Okay.
So, I mean, when you factor that in, that's a real significant savings. And when you putting 8.5 gallons of oil into an engine every time
Yeah.
every 200 hours when you change it, it's a lot of money over the course of 1,000 hours.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure if the town will have the free cash for that
Yep.
this year.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and
Is that in the capital?
it's
Plan?
plan, the capital plan,
That is the capital
I think
plan?
that was supposed to be purchased in 2019, I think. was
2019.
After the latest one, I think it's been on the capital plan for us since I started here in 2009, so.
Is there a way to try to split that out between the three departments, or no? Because it's so
That's-
specific.
That's been talked about, but it's really, as far as water and sewer stuff, they really don't use it at all.
Yeah,
You
So
know,
they're
as
not-
far as more than maybe loading a truck with gravel to backfill a hole,
Yeah.
other than that, it pretty much doesn't ever get
it's
used.
not excavating.
It's something we could, you know, maybe split with chapter 90. You know, I'd hate to take that big a chunk out of chapter 90, but we could do a partial,
Mhm.
you know, with chapter 90 funds and then the town.
Yeah.
You know, do something like that. I think that would work.
So,
Because we
yeah.
do use it for road projects, that's for sure.
Yeah, probably have to get creative, maybe as we get into next fiscal, 25, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that,
Probably,
it's
yeah.
needed for a while.
I mean, what do you think your opinion, like the lifespan, like if you had to push it, you got 4 years left on it, 5
Oh,
years?
yeah.
or-
Oh, yeah, the lifespan's pretty much over, right? I mean,
-2.
if we can nurse it along for another year or so,
Okay.
that's probably no problem.
Yeah.
The radiator is, you know, very rough on. There's no fins left in it, just the tubes are there. I mean, it's pretty rough.
Okay.
And, you know, if we're gonna put a radiator in it, that's gonna be, you know, $8,000 to put a radiator in.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's,
Plus, you're not a mechanic.
When
we're not mechanics, right?
What the heck are you
So,
gonna do?
when
stuff-
did you
stuff
lose
fixing
that
everything.
master mechanic?
What's that?
When did you lose him?
He retired, the 14th of this month.
Oh,
Yeah,
And is that position posted?
I believe so.
Well, I was told that it was gonna be an internal hire.
Internal hire? Oh, I don't know, we don't have anybody interested in internal, so.
But Maureen has that.
Oh, really? Oh.
Maybe she's got somebody.
Yeah, I
He
I
hasn't
don't know.
been training somebody.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been training anybody. We do have a couple people, you know, that were pretty handy and have been a mechanic for many years, but,
Good.
as far as being able to just be a mechanic, you know, it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
devote all the time to do it. We'll be able to get by until we get one. It's
Mhm.
gonna be, you know, not a real pleasure. There'll be a lot of extra time probably for that as well, but
Yeah.
we'll get by. But again, the same thing with the mechanic stuff, we do everything in-house. The only stuff that we usually send out is warranty stuff. If it's not warranty work, we do it in-house.
Okay. Any questions for highway, and we'll move on to water next?
Water's the same thing. You know, we have wishful numbers in there for salaries and stuff like that. Water and sewer, those, same thing. Those jobs are so readily available right now, you know, they can't find water operators or wastewater operators anywhere. And they, you know, private companies and state entities are paying astronomical amounts for people. So, again, what I tried to stress to the select board and the commissioners when we were talking about union negotiations is to remember that water and sewer salaries come out of their budget and not necessarily general funds, you know, so when we talk about amounts that we'll be able to approve, hopefully they keep that in mind, you know, so we can try to retain people. It stinks when we get people, we send them to class, we get them all their licenses, you know, and it's not that they're not happy here or want to stay here, but when they have a job offer for, you know, 30-40% more money, and it's only a 10-minute further drive, it's you know,
It's a hard sell.
it is a hard sell, and you can't fault them for bettering themselves, you know, I mean, they gotta take care of themselves and their family.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes. And so water, let me see here, so look real quick. Chemicals, everything seems pumping. And the upgrade, that's going towards like the larger, what's the goal of the upgrade account?
So the upgrade account that is in the actual budget is for like if we have to upgrade pumps, or if we have to upgrade SCADA systems. Like this year, we just put a new SCADA system in all our wells so we can have better controls. Mass DEP comes in, they do a sanitary survey every 3 years, and one thing they wanted, like, we have samples and numbers for all of our chemical additions and stuff like that. With the new SCADA system, we can have composite stuff and real-time information, so they can actually see, every minute of every day what that is, rather than just having grab samples of when we go there to do our rounds every single day.
Mhm.
So that's something they wanted, so stuff like that, we take out of those accounts.
Now that, the account does have a pretty hefty carry forward balance, right?
It does, yep.
And is there a goal at the end of the day for that account to reach, or you don't want, you just
No, just
like
kinda.
a rainy day type of thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, kind of keeps kind of going up. I believe the other one, on the $70,000 one, I believe that's the truck.
Yep.
The one that's on there says water upgrade for 70,000.
Yeah, well, let me see here, the one that's attached to account ended in 600 there.
Is that just on, because water operations is 6,000. Water upgrade.
Right, he's talking about 576600.
Yeah, the water.
So the upgrade.
Yeah, the upgrade.
Okay, yeah, that's what that's for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the budget like that, you guys have like 400 and something thousand dollars rolls.
Right, but okay. That's what that is for, just like I said, like the SCADA system. But the one on the actual budget for water upgrade is for the truck. So that $70,000 must be included in that. That's 576600.
Yeah, yeah, that goes, yeah, so 57660, you can see here. You got, this is your balance right here in the
Right.
account is 426,000.
Yep.
And you funded it this year, 70,000.
Right. Yep.
And so far this year, it was expended 720.
Okay.
So I was just curious, is there a goal, like this number here, is there a goal you're trying to,
No, what we usually do, we usually adjust that.
Okay.
So this year, if the truck is purchased, what we used to do is put like $10,000 in there. I think it may have been,
the truck, yeah.
with the 70,000, it may have been put in there a couple times.
You have the truck right here.
Right.
So the truck, you got the 60,000 that's rolling, and then there was another
Okay.
10,000 from last year, so we have the 70 for the truck.
Okay, that's for the truck.
Yeah, and that's a revolving, right, so that 10,000 will stick, Jessica? Right,
Well,
okay.
the truck was, the additional 10,000 for the truck was because the price changed from when we ordered it to when they finally could take delivery of it, so they actually made us redo our order,
Mm-hmm,
because of the price difference was over a certain percentage or whatever.
yeah,
So that's what that additional 10,000 is for.
okay. And on the water upgrade?
Yeah, that, we don't have to put 70,000, so.
Okay.
Like right now, we have a project coming up that we're gonna be connecting 2 of our dead-end water lines.
Okay,
So like, when we do that upgrade, that money will come out of there.
okay,
Duct line pipe, $42 a foot, we get 1,900 feet of pipe to put in the ground for that particular connection.
yep,
So when we do that, that stuff will come out of that upgrade account.
okay.
So that's what that's for, the SCADA system stuff will come out of that.
Okay, and that's, like, what was the cost of, like, the SCADA system? Is that, like,
The SCADA system, we did everything in-house with our in-house electrician, and we just bought the parts and put the whole system together. I forget those were like $3,000.
okay, but that'll come out of that water
That'll come
upgrade,
out.
okay. Now, is there a big, like, upgrade coming, like, where you, like, that 1,900 feet?
That
That'll
1,900 feet, yeah,
take in a
that'll-
big,
That'll
all
take a big chunk of that.
Okay.
So that's,
right, good. And then, the pickup truck's in there from 21. OT, water OT, a little over, that's the same situation that we talked about?
same situation.
Okay,
The other thing that's happened with the overtime accounts over the years, until a few years back, we would increase the pay rates with
COLAs and union increases and stuff like that, but we wouldn't increase the overtime. You know, that was a way to try to keep the budget back where it was, so now it's kind of needs to get caught back up.
Understood. All right, and then, any other questions from any of the committee on the water?
Nope. How's the condition of our wells, all right?
Our wells are good.
Wells are good?
We're in good
No
shape now.
major problems?
No
in the
major
future
problems
there?
right now. We have a new pump that we're gonna be installing in our well 3 down in South Barre. That'll be in the next month or two, just because that one hasn't been done. We're gonna
Mhm.
service our well number 2. That's gonna be the next week or two, actually. The guy will be here to do that. So our wells are in good shape right now. We're all caught back up.
And the water's good that's coming out?
The water's very good. Yep, the water's very good. That's one thing we're very lucky in this town. We don't really have to
I think
do
so.
much with our water, you know, as far as chemical addition, stuff like that.
Mm.
We have good water. So it's just a minor pH adjustment.
Yeah.
We do have one well that we've had shut off for 5 years now because there was a drought back in 2016, I think it was, so it's actually been more than that. And the water started coming from a different vein that had a lot of iron in it.
Yeah.
So iron, obviously, in the water causes a lot of complaints and stuff like that, so we don't use that well unless we actually have to. There is talk, same thing, I was talking about that sanitary survey. DEP comes out, they want a little bit more redundancy. So what we're looking into is some satellite wells at our current well locations. So we do have, so look at our well number 3, we can put a second well there, so if something was to happen to that well, you know, we'd have another one we just turn on. And obviously, when that well's there, they would alternate, so they didn't both run. You know, one wouldn't run continuously, it would alternate to make the lifespan better on all of our wells. So that's in the works as well. That's in the early planning phases and stuff like that. But again, all that stuff we would try to do out of our operating budget with that upgrade account,
Okay.
with our maintenance account and our operations account.
Oh, nice.
Good. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions on water, we'll move into sewer. And sewer's pretty much the same thing, right?
Pretty much the same as water. Everything changed pretty much the same as water. I think there's anything else in there that was.
The sewer, this year you're up though on the inflow and infiltration.
Yes, so that INI increase was part of a mandated study that we need to do. So an INI study needs to be done in part because the EPA makes us do certain amounts based on the gallons we pump and the gallons we sell for water. You know, they want to make sure our INI. So that's what that's for. And that's also part of that has to do with the upgrade. They needed a little bit more information for the upgrade we're doing at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's, the INI study got bumped up for that reason.
Does that have to do with the MS4 permit for the,
I don't believe so.
no, okay.
The other thing that we ran into with that account, that it got bumped up, they used to be a rolling account. So, you know, some years we'd only do a little bit of INI stuff, we'd only rebuild, you know, 40 sewer manholes a year. So we'd have an excess, and that would get rolled over. So the next year, you know, when something comes up, we did a paving project, and we had to rebuild, you know, 200, then we had the money in there. For some reason that stopped rolling over, so I believe Tom has been talking to Gene about that, and I'll get in touch with Gene as well to see if we can make that account go back to a revolving account. That way, the funds that are in there, it always did for many, many years, and all of a sudden it stopped. So I don't know what happened there. So that's another reason for that, because usually we wouldn't have had to jump like that, but because it wasn't continuously rolling, we have to replenish that too.
Does the infiltration report, does that look good, or?
Oh, yes,
The numbers-
our system's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
We have a couple different sections where we thought we had some issues, so that's where they're focusing, you know, the INI studies on, see if we can pinpoint stuff. We had a bunch of INI stuff at Colebrook Campground. They're doing tons of upgrades up there now, so hopefully a lot of that stuff will be settled. They made a bunch of repairs to their system to take care of INI conditions, so.
INI, it's easy to say.
It is.
And that truck will also be coming in, right?
Yes.
Sewer truck
Yep.
will be coming in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And the old article there for the sewer, that's what you talked about earlier, right? Article from the 2005, looks like you used most of that this year. It was a wastewater treatment upgrade article from '05,
Yep.
and you guys used most of it up, 13,850.
We've been trying to use up the old stuff, like you say, to get
Yeah.
it cleaned up, so you don't
Okay.
have to look at 100 different things on there with $14, you know.
And then the sewer replacement funds, that's a revolving account.
That is revolving.
So that has a little bit over.
That's the same kind of thing. Obviously, like the upgrades and stuff can't come out of things like that because it's such an astronomical number.
Mhm.
But, you know, if we have a pump that wears out, you know, we have VFDs that, you know, stop working and stuff like that, we have the money in there to replace them.
Okay.
That's what that's for. Some years, we clean it right out, and some years, we're lucky and we can keep rolling it over.
Okay. With sewer, where are you guys at with the big upgrade there? We had the special for.
We have 10% plans right now.
Okay.
So we're in the process of going through them. We're still trying to balance the numbers, and we want to keep all the upgrades we do within what we had already planned for our rate increases. You know, we don't want to go outside of our means. You know, we do have the core things that we need to get done. What we're finding now is the way the costs are coming back, we need to even get a little bit more tight on what we're going to get done.
Mhm.
Nothing's gone out to bid yet, so that may change, you know, when it goes out. If the prices come in better than the engineering firms are anticipating, you know, we'll be able to get a little bit more of the work done.
Yeah.
Obviously, but we want to be prepared to, you
Yeah.
know, be able to do what we need to do, so.
Absolutely.
And the federal funding is, where is that at?
The federal funding, I forget the exact percentage, but it came in pretty low. It was like 12.5%, I think, or 12.8% is what they grant funded for the project, which is another reason why the project has been cut back.
Yeah, a little bit, because you were expecting, what was it, higher than that?
We were expecting 30 to 40%. That's what we were very hopeful for.
Yeah.
And, you know, they made it sound very promising, but when it finally came through, that's
Yeah.
not what we got. So we had to scale the project back quite a bit. And again, we're gonna do what we have to do to keep that within what we already planned for money wise. You know, we're not gonna go outside of our scope of rate increase.
How many customers are on sewer in town? Approximately.
Sewer connections, I believe, it's like 1140, so
Okay.
you know, almost 1,200
a
sewer
good amount.
connections in town.
More than-
Water is up around 1,500 plus.
Oh, really? I have to figure it'd be higher.
Yep.
Any questions for Jason on sewer? No? I don't think I have any questions.
Further question?
You know, I'll give it the same spiel I give everybody, you know, the town budget's in a little bit. We're in a tough spot
Yeah.
this year. And, you know, as you know, like, we have hopefully we can defer some of those costs, if the town agrees, to free up some money in the budget, and then hopefully hit the metrics that all the departments need in terms of fuel, labor, you know, it's, you know, new CBAs, so I think your department as well as, is it the police and they come in with the CBA? We don't have the school number yet. It's gonna be tight, so if we can take that, if the town agrees and they vote to allow that debt exclusion for those fire apparatuses, and I think there's some DPW equipment
Yeah,
in
there's some
there.
old DPW.
Yeah, pickups, somehow, I mean, this was before, you know, my time here, but many years ago.
I think it was as far back as 2005, is that when that was?
Yeah.
I say that was before my time here too, so that was.
And it's still out there for 3 more years, and that's $175,000 coming out of the general operating budget.
Right.
And so if the town agrees to pull that out and pull it off, it'll give us some freedom, you
Yep.
know, because the school's gonna come in, they're gonna be a big portion of the, as they always are.
Yep.
They're gonna come in as a big portion of the budget, so we're keeping our fingers crossed right now.
Yeah, 'cause I've had some people come up to me and question me about, that stuff's like, oh, you're getting a bunch of new stuff. I'm like, no.
No, it's just paying off
They're
old
just
stuff.
paying off stuff that they bought in 2005. So
Yeah.
that's,
And hopefully the town doesn't decide to do that again going forward. You
Right.
know, with equipment like that, to me, doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
You know, an ambulance that you're gonna put out of service in 2 years, you're gonna be,
right.
you know, paying another 5 years on.
In the capital plan, even back then, pickup trucks, I believe, were 5 years, you know, big trucks were 10 years, you know, equipment was 10 years.
Yeah.
So to finance something out that far, that was supposed to have a 5-year lifespan, according to the capital improvement plan, seems a little bit crazy.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate your time and all the information.
Thank
Yeah, if
you,
we need
guys.
anything else, we'll be in touch.
All right, yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
See you at the Jeff. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving right along here. We have, was it library next?
Library.
Circling back around, coming back up. There we are. Mr. Joe in the library. If you want to come on up, yeah, just bring a chair with you.
I'm here for moral support.
There you go.
He knows what he's talking about.
Well, thank you all for moving things around for us tonight. I wasn't expecting a couple staff call-outs last minute, but
It happens, right? We were planning a little longer night anyways because the snowstorm
Friday I pushed it.
rearranged our last meeting, so. Oh yeah, I got your information pulled up. If you want to jump right into it, sir.
Sure. So I guess, I'll start with the budget, and then I have a couple things that actually, if we want to hand it out now or wait. But just have a couple, like our current expenses and some numbers of how many patrons that have attended our programs and visitors to the library, things like that. So that's what this is. But I'll go through line by line.
If you do.
Yep. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
That's enough.
Thank you.
For you.
Thank you.
Alright. So the first thing that I have, I guess we'll just start at the top under salaries, and I know I wrote this in the memo to you guys, but, so the main thing that we were looking for the town to consider was an increase for the library staff, the hourly rate increase. I think I was looking at the classification chart, and based on these positions' responsibilities and the everyday tasks, it doesn't look like they're in the right classes to me. So this budget that I've given you has the full-time librarians bumped up from a class 3 to a class 5, and the part-time assistants from a class 1 to a class 3. And I only printed out one of these charts, but it kind of shows the move that I am proposing for you. So I think that puts the staff at an appropriate level, and especially compared to where other libraries of a similar size are also paying their employees, just based on their tasks alone. And I think that a more competitive rate would encourage people to stay with the town, with the library longer. Last year, we lost 2 employees, not only because of salary, but that was obviously part of it. I know this isn't the only department that has that problem, but that is something that, we've kind of stayed stagnant for the last 10 years in as far as like salaries go. As far as salaries go. So that's the reason why I brought that up this year for you. And with any increases in the budget, the materials expenditure has to increase. We have to spend 19% of our total operating budget on circulating items for the library. So if any part of the budget goes up, that also has to go up. So under the expenses, the books line has gone up a little bit, and that is including museum passes. Actually, the books line really includes anything other than media. I also increased, I kept the media line of audio books and DVDs, that line the same. Public use technology increased a little bit as well, and that is actually how we're able to pay for the 10 mobile hotspots that we have, that people check out. We can pay for the data for those hotspots out of that line item. And then that will help us. We have 5 laptops that people come in, check out with their library card and use anywhere in the building, and they're about 6 or 7 years old, so a couple of those will have to be replaced, so that's why I brought that one up a little bit. Other than that, I did end up keeping the utilities the same. I do, on one of the sheets that I gave you, the fuel, obviously, I'm assuming everybody's has gone up this year. Everything else is kind of right where it should be as far as utilities go. Electric is a little bit high. But the only other thing that I wanted to point out was the building budget, the building line at the bottom of utilities, which is, we've had a few, we have had some of the pipe burst in the kids' room that we had to fix, and then that resulted in more boiler work being done. We had an issue with the public bathrooms on the lower level overflowing and having to clean that out. So we've had some isolated building incidents, which is why that is as high as it is. That's not something that, hopefully, usually will happen.
Now, is that pipe, does insurance cover any of that, or is that no?
No.
Didn't hit the deductible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Love
That's how
that.
it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that.
Same thing happened with Felton Field, right? Like their vandalism, right? It was just under the deductible.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that is. Everything else is level funded for now. Once I get a better, this is the first year that I've been doing this, so once I get a better look at kind of the trends for those things, I can move those around, but I didn't for this year because I want to take a look and see where we go from here before I adjust any of that.
And what did we put in for the library, Jessica? Is it that 12.6? That's what's in your sheet that you handed out?
So in what I had handed out, I am going to recommend that we unfortunately don't go forward with the class increase. And it's unfortunate, as we've talked about, there's a lot of areas of our budget that have seen significant increases. But when we look at next year, we don't have any union contracts to negotiate. So our, salaries for the police and the fire and the DPW will be, what's the word I'm looking for? Expected. Like, we will know
Yeah.
what those numbers will be. And so that's when I think the staff at the library and the town hall, their salaries should be looked at. Over the past couple of years, we've been really great with bringing non-union employees up to a little bit more of a competitive salary. That's been mostly department heads. I think every department head has seen a pretty significant increase in their salary to help make them a little bit more competitive. But I think the unfortunate reality is that we can't move everybody up at the same time. So I would just recommend that this year focus on the union contracts that we have open, and then next year we won't have any union contracts. And the only salaries that will be remaining would be non-union, non-department head staff.
Where are those classes defined? C3 and C5?
Yeah.
So this is the class chart. This is 2023's the town classification chart. So
This is a town document.
yes, yeah.
And is that what you hear, like steps, classifications,
Yes.
Same thing? Okay.
And you
Well,
could-
steps are different than classifications. So
So-
Yes.
the classification.
You jump from 3 to 5, would it be?
Oh, there's no
over-
4. There's no
Oh,
4.
there is no
That would make
It
sense.
goes 1, 3, 5, 7. There's no even numbers at all. So it's only
I
one
see.
step.
That's
But
Yeah.
Really jump up.
yeah, so there's different classifications, and that goes from like a lower skill to the higher skill. So you have the department heads at the top of the classification, but then the steps is based off of the number of the years that that employee has been in
Okay,
working.
yeah, I understand. Similar like with the schools, it goes up like the level of education is the class, right? And then the steps are the longevity. Okay.
So class is the same as step?
No.
No, class is like left to right and step is.
Oh,
No.
okay, over here.
No.
Other way?
Step
Yeah.
is left to right, class
Oh, they
is-
do it different.
So if you think like a class 1 is an entry level, lower skilled position, and then a class, I forget what the top class is, but say it's class 11, that is a department head, like the DPW director.
Thanks.
Makes sense?
I'm sure it would be worthy.
And then the step is, step is
work on it.
entry, like step is from, step minimum is when you walk in the door, and then step 20 is, or 8 is when you've been here for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, what would be like the determining factor to move from like the C3 to the C5?
So I was looking at some of the other job descriptions that were in those classification, you know, like the full-time librarians are not just sitting at the desk checking in and checking out books. They're running departments, they're overseeing the part-time staff just like I do. They're running programs, they're doing things off-site. So the library is structured a little bit differently than the other departments in town that have, you know, a department head and then one assistant. There's multi-levels in the building. So that was part of the reason why I think making this change, whenever that may happen, just fits their list of responsibilities more closely with the other jobs that are in that classification, they're in that category.
Okay. Understood. And you gave us the, take us through your programs.
The other sheet, so, I don't know which one we're looking at first, the smaller print one. So that, I just printed the first page, so we have to keep a list of all of our programs and attendance and everything for the state every year. So we report the amount of people that come, the amount of programs we do for different age ranges. So I printed this because up at the top in the total column, so far, we've done 145 programs, and we've had 3,979 people attend them from the start of the fiscal year to now. And I wrote right underneath it, we also keep a list of how many people are entering the building through both doors every day the library's open, and we average about 400 per week. So I wrote that on here too, just so you can see kind of how, you know, the usage of the library is.
How does that compare to like last year or since reopening for?
Well, we've definitely gone up. I don't have last year's numbers right in front of me. We've definitely, I want to say, well, the building, because we were counting people, even when the library was closed, we were counting how many people were coming for curbside service. And I think that year, I want to say it was like the 16,000 range in total, and I think we're close to about 20 this year. Our highest was 2019, I think it was 26 or 27,000 for the year.
Okay.
And I think part of this too is, since we've reopened on Fridays, I think a lot of people, I still run into people that don't know that we've reopened on Friday, which was, we had a lot of people on Fridays, that was a busy time for us. So I think that number will continue to rise.
Nice.
What's STEAM? How come, the STEAM is on there 4 or 5 times?
So STEAM
I'm a STEAM, I'm kind of a
Science,
STEAM guy.
technology,
So you
education.
get really
or no,
upset.
Yeah.
art.
Art
It's
and-
it's an acronym.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and we do, so a lot of these, so some of these are counted more than once because they were probably either weekly or monthly programs, so these are individually every time we have an event, counting the people that come to those.
I thought that was STEM. This is
They-
from
No, they added a letter.
They added a letter.
We added the
They added-
Appreciate you
Yeah.
guys.
Don't forget art.
I know,
Yep, art's in there now.
yeah.
Keeping up with the times.
That's right. And some of our bigger ones, like we did, like in July, we do Touch a Truck. We had 153 people last year for that. We partnered with the DPW, that's a huge program. Some of the other ones, we do like the Teddy Bear Picnic at the end of the summer, that's a big one. So the summertime is really when we have a lot of the programs.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else for Joe? Any questions for him? The library?
Not really. Just a general interest question is,
Yeah.
e-books. Who
Yes.
pays for those?
So that comes out of our budget. So we partner with the consortium, so if the library, if we purchase an audiobook, it goes into the system for anybody at any library to borrow as well, just like physical copies of books they can borrow from other libraries. But that comes out of those books media, the expenses line. So, I mean, you know, like if there's a book that's really popular and there are not many copies available, individual libraries can purchase those and add extra copies to the system. But it comes out of our circulating expenses.
But if you don't, books that you don't own, well, how does that get billed? How does the online company, how do they bill
You know
for that
what?
book?
It's all done through CW Mars,
Okay.
so that
They
I'm not
pay?
sure.
Oh, you're not sure?
So the consortium
Yeah.
handles a lot of the expenses. Libraries don't have to purchase copies of books,
Right.
copies of ebooks to be part of the network and borrow from other libraries.
Right.
So a lot of times the network itself will buy, or some of the bigger libraries like Worcester
Yeah.
or, you know, Athol will purchase multiple copies for the entire network.
So you're telling me that an ebook that is electronic, that is like an infinite resource, that you have to
Digital.
buy multiple of them
Oh, yeah.
because you can only borrow
You can
one
only
at
download
Correct.
one at a
So
time.
Oh, that's a little bit of a joke.
You purchase the license for the book, and the license is a copy.
Uh-huh.
And they're also more expensive than books. They're like $50-$60 a book.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
Now
And
that
books are-
doesn't
and
make
books
sense.
we get, hardcover books, we get a discount through the company that we order from, so they're like $15-$20 sometimes for hardcover books.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is why I don't purchase very many of them, and I
Yeah.
share the consortium's resources.
Well,
That's interesting. I
So-
tried
yeah.
using an ebook through a library once, way back when ebooks were just starting to become a thing, and it was the most difficult thing I ever tried to
I
figure out.
promise it's
Oh,
easier
you need
now.
to.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. I don't read
Ebook,
ebooks
yeah.
anymore. I'm more of a hard copy kind of person.
Yeah.
But I just was
Yeah.
like, that just blew my mind. You're like, oh well, some of us
Yeah.
buy extra. What do you
Yeah.
mean? It's a literal.
Prince Harry's new book, I
Yeah.
bought 2 copies. I mean, there were like, I think over 1,000 holds in the system for it,
Oh
and I
my
ended up
God.
buying 2 copies of that. But,
Jeez.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, because when you look on the Libby, right, it's like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, a
Wow.
little longer than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so yeah, sometimes I was like, wow,
It's
that's
like your
7 months
hold-
for a book.
752, and there's 8 copies, and you're like, great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
The
while.
good thing is if we buy a copy of the book, it goes into the system, and then our patrons get those holds first,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
good.
not- They
Okay.
don't immediately go out
Yeah.
and are not
Get
borrowed
scoffed
our-
up by.
our people, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I read I read like Gone with the Wind.
I don't think is there a license for that one? That's gotta be out of copyright.
That's good information.
Interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions for us? You guys good? No? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got something.
Oh my God, what you got?
Oh,
I didn't carry
Is it
it.
money?
bribing the finance committee
Wait a
already.
minute.
Check. If I can get it out of here.
I'm still voting against it.
The gentleman to whom it was made out to,
Yeah.
I never cashed it. and
Okay.
I found it and he said, do something with it.
Okay.
So I've been waiting to run it to Kathy and I haven't, so
Okay.
I don't think he's gonna, the account hasn't balanced.
2019.
2019.
Oh, wow.
You better reconcile your books.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
No free cash coming there. Mind blown. You learn
Yeah.
something every day. Jesus.
But
Wow.
you really don't buy ebooks, huh?
I can't get it. I like the hard, you know.
But you can just, you just boom, and it turns the page for you.
You know what though, Jess, I agree with you, because I do both, but
Yeah.
with that,
Yeah.
I never know where I am. But with the book, you know, there's a weight to it, especially at bedtime. You know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they tell you that at
No, it comes
bedtime, it's
back.
not a good thing to be doing that with the screen.
No, I have one that,
Well, you have like the paper, like.
yeah, paperweight.
Yeah.
Paperweight, yeah.
Right.
That doesn't have the Blu-ray.
Right.
Get back to
Maybe I'll give it a try again. Yeah.
Give it a try.
If I don't have a chance, thank you for what you've done for the
Thank
town.
you.
and We're gonna miss you.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye.
take
Bye.
care.
Everybody, thank you so much.
I've considered considered getting another Kindle, but I'm like, I don't know.
We're ready for you, Alan.
You can carry
We're
50
ready.
books with you.
I could. I can only read one at a time, though.
Keeping you late tonight.
Yeah.
I still gotta go
Sorry.
look at our charging.
I think she's giving us, you gave us a printout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I gotta, that's, I only did one of these, this is,
The department.
yeah, I just added in my
Yep.
numbers.
Yep.
And there was a couple of, changes,
Okay.
there that were different,
Okay.
so, I don't know how you wanna do that, and I think those were yours too. And I got these for everybody. You thought you were gonna get out of here with no paper.
No, we got some good.
Library comes in and the town clerk comes in. Darn, you got paper. Those are just the goals and objectives that you asked for. And I just have 2 extra copies too for the other.
See, Ellen reads the stuff we send out, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I try to.
that's good.
And that's my budget. I apologize for not getting this to you sooner, but I do the best I can.
I we knew that was coming.
And one more. Thank you. Okay, so those are the extra copies. So I can just say, the budget goal sheet and objective sheet, I just list, I don't know if you wanna go through that or not, or if you just wanna read it at your leisure.
Well, you want, why don't you give us like high level?
Highlights.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the, just financially, the accomplishments is I was able to work with the state auditor's office as all 351 cities and towns were asked to complete a survey from the state auditor's office to get some reimbursement from the early voting costs from 2022. So I was able to complete that, and I did get approval. We haven't received, I checked with Jake as of today, we still haven't received the funds yet, but we are gonna get some reimbursement for that, so I was
Oh,
happy,
nice. Great.
happy that we were able to do that. And it's gonna be in the vicinity of roughly $5,512.75, so that was a nice little kickback
Yeah.
that we're gonna get back.
Anytime the state can give back, right?
Right? And that money there, I believe is earmarked to go back to the general fund. So it doesn't come back into the extended polling or the elections or anything like that. That goes directly back into the general fund is my understanding of that. And then additionally, I was able to get back $2,597 from the extended polling. Again, that was through resubmitting the application and survey through the state auditor's office. So we got a little bit of that back too. And that we already received back. So that was nice. Getting through the elections was an accomplishment. September and November, and the town election we're going into right now should be fairly minimal. We have the race for selectmen, and it's been really quiet. It's been a quiet election. Hasn't been I haven't noticed a whole lot of activities. And so even with the debt exclusion on the ballot, I really thought that would draw out a lot more, but it hasn't. As of right now, I have 6 absentee ballots.
No kidding, huh?
So I think we're gonna end up with a low turnout unless the candidates really get out there and start drumming up voters.
Yeah.
I think we are gonna end up with a low turnout. I just don't think the interest is, I don't know why, but I just think we are gonna have a smaller turnout. And then
surprise me and maybe we'll get a huge turnout.
Yeah.
You never know,
Just
right?
never know.
What's the average turnout for the local election? Like with nothing crazy on the ballot?
Yeah, it's really not, I mean, I think we're under, I mean, if we got 500 people,
Right,
that would be big.
under 1,000,
Um,
So that's
For
like- that's
that,
like
years ago, it
15%.
used to be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I can remember how we had town elections were a big thing. But we had a lot of activities in the Democratic committees, the Republican town committees. There was a lot more politics or, political involvement.
more people running maybe.
And, yeah, it was just seems like there used to be, I mean, we used to have a much larger turnout.
It's hard to find volunteers for anything these days, it seems like.
Yeah, that's another issue. It's not even volunteers, like for my election workers, I can't just pull anyone off the street to come in and work an election. They have to go through training, the state requires them to go through training. Right now, we're paying, we got the pays for the election workers up, their minimum wage, so it's 15, 50, and 16, I think is the current rates. The warden who runs everything gets the 16. And I have, and really they're still volunteering.
Yeah.
And my wardens and clerks, they're there from, 6 in the morning until midnight,
Yeah, that's
straight
crazy.
through.
Wow.
That's a long day.
Oh, yeah.
And, then we had the early voting that was all brand new, and all of those new regulations that came into play and new rules on how things worked. And so, I had to ask a lot of my election workers to kind of, please, you need to come to the training. I know it's another day, I know it's this, and they've been fantastic. But if anyone wants, of people that want to work the elections, send them my way. We'll train them and we can get them working and get them going, because I'm really a little nervous, to be honest, going into the next presidential election year. There's a lot of changes. Things are just they're different today.
Yeah.
Even the whole, the whole process and the candidates and all the different political organizations and private organizations that have gotten involved, that, they want everything has, more open, more transparent, which is fantastic. But sometimes that's hard to do and hard to administer when you're trying to actually do the job and get everything done, and then you're getting bogged down on all of these requests. Well, we were getting requests every single day. They wanted a list of everybody that voted every single day through the entire voting process from different candidates. So if people vote early one day and 100 vote the next day, we had to, give them the list on a daily basis. Some of them were requesting it.
Yeah, but voters no longer one day.
And after the
spread out.
election, they wanted copies of the voter
Yeah.
lists, they wanted copies of everything. Verifying signatures against the absentee ballot envelopes, we had from the application to the ballot. And I can tell you myself, I signed my name probably 15 different ways. It all depends on what kind of mood I'm in, how tired I am,
Yeah.
whether I'm at the grocery store, I'm doing an electronic thing, or, so, we're not handwriting experts, but we're expected to do all of these extra steps.
Yeah.
And it's just really, and trying, when elections come to the clerk's office, we can't just stop and just do elections. We have to keep everything running. We have to keep the vitals going. People are still getting married, people are still being born, people are still passing away. We've got the funeral homes coming in because they need the burial permits, and it's just different. A lot has changed. So I think my goals going forward are obviously, Jessica has been fantastic to work with. I'm gonna miss her very, very much. Just with working with the records, and I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to go down and actually see the records room downstairs.
Only to pay my dog license, I think, so I don't think I've actually been inside. But
Inside that, now that used to be the old rescue squad room and whatnot, but Jessica was able to secure the grant, and we had General Code and the box company, I can't, King Systems
yep.
came in, and we were able to get all of the records, and Jessica was, administered through the whole way. She saw it all the way through. We got all of the shelving, all of the records in. So now they're all in boxes, labels, they're in the catalog. And in the computer software. But we have the retention schedule. I was able to print off a current copy of the state retention schedule that's there. So now we can start to keep track of all of these and start purging on a regular basis, which is very important. And I think that got lost for a very long time for our town. We purged a lot.
We had a whole day. Yep.
A lot.
Cleaned out a lot of space.
But if you hold on to these records, now we're obligated to take care of them and preserve them and to provide them if they're requested.
Yep.
Which,
Increases
we
our
wanna try to-
exposure.
Yes.
Yep.
So we want to really keep up with that. Going forward, the new town administrator coming in will recognize that, the importance of that, and we can continue to keep that program going and growing and expanding on it. We're working with General Code, with the Laserfiche. We've got the software. None of us have had training on it yet. And it really hasn't been implemented yet. But what that Laserfiche software is, if no one's familiar with it, which what it does is it's a software that allows us to help start digitizing our records so we can scan them in and start filing them and making them more accessible internally. But it also has a public portal too, so if there are records that are frequently requested, we can put it on the public side of the portal and whatnot, so that we're not, it will help alleviate in the long term a lot of the staffing issues with doing these long grueling searches for, research that, it's just time consuming.
That would
they'll
include
be able
minutes
do
to
a lot of their own.
meetings, the townwide meetings, any meeting in the town that would be on that too?
Town meeting minutes, absolutely.
No, minutes of meetings, of committees, and
Yeah, meeting minutes.
Meeting minutes.
Yeah.
We refer to them as meeting minutes.
so,
So right now, I have all the meeting minutes, the hard copies are all bound into books, into the safe. So what we would do is we could have them come in and they would scan in all of those books and then upload them, and we would have them all the way back. Going forward, and as of
well,
right now,
that's
we
my
should-
question, going forward, what does it look like? As far as, do you have any minutes coming in from some departments or not?
Well, they're supposed to still, by law, we still have to have them in hard copy.
Yeah.
So they still require that.
You getting those?
But right now, we're still getting, we get most of the boards. There are some boards and committees that we're not still getting
And
now.
what's the,
The bylaw is that they're supposed to be uploading them to My Town Government. When you go to post your meeting on My Town Government, after your meeting's done, you should be going back and attaching your set of minutes and any documents that you discussed at that meeting to My Town Government.
So-
We have the software in place
right.
for everything, for those things going forward.
That's what I was showing you earlier, my time government, yeah.
So what?
And that's what the minutes should be. This way, if anybody wanted to go in and look up, they could see
Exactly,
the
it's
agenda
easy.
and the minutes,
It's easy.
everything's in one location and it's
Yeah.
right there, which is nice. General Code and the Laserfiche system is a little different. That takes all of our archives and it then categorizes them. And it's not just minutes, it's all of our records. But we could certainly.
So currently, you receive like 90% of the minutes of town meetings,
Most of-
different meetings?
Most of the committees, boards, like we always get selectmen, we always get finance, we always get, there's a few boards like planning, conservation, zoning, those are always coming in. The 250th committee, even they come
They're
in,
new.
they're really good about giving their minutes. But there are a few boards that fall behind. We have like, I think it's, water, sewer, those minutes
Yeah.
tend to fall behind.
Okay.
But
So if somebody requested one of those
Assessments.
in your department, and you didn't have it,
Yeah, I would direct them back to the board of committee, because if the board of committee has to have, by law, has to have minutes of their meeting. And if they haven't finalized them and they're not in their final form, then they have to provide their notes or their rough draft or whatever they have, if they can't provide the final set of minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go the whole deal.
Yeah, no, not at all. So, so records management was a big thing that, I was like trying, you know, that was on my capital plan for years and years and years. And then Jessica comes in and she's like, I got this grant here and I see this, it was on the thing, and she just went, boom, and she got it. So I was very, very excited.
So you can take
That's
my
a huge
OCD.
Yes, she got things done. So, that's a goal going forward, to just continue to work on and improve and streamline processes and get things, you know, that. And then obviously to keep any legal expenses down. I worry about that because there's like so many changes in the laws and stuff like that, that, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm always feeling like I need to consult before I do something, because I don't want to ever do something that's going to get the town in trouble. I tried, Jessica, again, has been fantastic. She's very knowledgeable. I was able to, you know, go to her a lot, and we were able to resolve without having to go, you know, get into legal counsel. I also use the state agencies and depend on them very much for as much as I can, but more and more I'm getting from the state agencies that, you know, you really need to talk to your town council. So they're kicking it back to us constantly, and they're not like giving us the that we were accustomed to getting over all these years. And again, I think it's because so much is changing, and it's changing so fast that, you know, I just worry about that going forward. But we will do our best. I do also plan on attending as much training and anything that's available to try to keep on top of all of these, and mostly elections, but also with the vital records as well, because there's a lot of changes coming with that too. They're going to be rolling out a new version of the state's software in January of 2024, and they'll be incorporating the marriages shortly thereafter. So that's going to be a whole new onboarding thing for the town. I think most of you have done the state ethics training. That was all brand new this year. The state is stepping in and taking over that. They've got their own division, the state ethics division is overseeing all of that now. So when you take those ethics trainings, they're tracking, they're making sure, so they have access to all that. We don't even have, and paperless, so I don't get paper copies. The only time I get a paper copy now is of the ethics training is if the employee or the appointee works for more than one community, because when the state rolled out the system, they didn't, it doesn't accommodate an employee who works in multiple communities, and it has to have a separate email address for each community. It actually has so they've got there's a lot of kinks that need to be worked out with the ethics, but they got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a good start, and it's just like anything on that magnitude. When they first did the central voter registry, you know, back when we were a modem and a FRAD, you know, it was like I could literally go to the post office and come back, and that was still, that little hourglass was like still rotating, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, how does he ever get anything done, right? But, so everything is evolving, I guess, is the word, and we're getting, and I don't know if you've noticed, like even some of the advertised now for city and towns, and this is like across the country, but they have like the customer kiosks, so they're getting more and more prone to digital technology and robotics and all these other things. So like in your large cities that have a large variation of languages. They might have, have to print their ballots in 7 different languages to be able to accommodate voters and stuff like that. So now they have like a little robot. That's one of the vendors came up with, like a robot that is now the poll assistant, and the voter goes to the poll assistant and they translate, and it does it in like, I don't know, like 20 different languages or something like that. But the technology is just really coming along a lot.
Moving quick.
But it's coming along with a big price tag.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, how much is this robot?
Right? So it's, and when we're looking at voting, especially, the money that is being spent on elections in this country is just mind-blowing. And I know that the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association just did a survey of all of the membership, and they're working on this, but it's just to see how many, how much time this early voting is taking up and the costs and what it's costing the individual communities and whatnot. But the high speed, like like Boston, your large cities that had all these early ballots that they had to process them, you're on a time frame. You've got to have everything counted by the end of the election, by the end of election. So they have these big high-speed processors that will process the ballots really quickly, but the cost of them is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, it's not feasible for four elections a year to do that. So, I think that a lot of things are changing. I don't know if we'll ever see like a completely electronic ballot. It'd be nice, but I did complete my survey and I did put in my own 2 cents. I suggested that the state have their own, the state take over all early voting for the entire state.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
And alleviate the municipalities of these burdens and expenses. If they could just leave the in-person at the poll precinct to the individual communities and clerks, that's so manageable.
Yeah.
And then take all of the mail ballots, the absentee ballots, and run it at a state level, and let them have the high-speed processors or whatever it is that they need to go through to create, that extra precinct for every city and town, 351 extra precincts, basically, and label them early voting, and then let them just add the results to the city or town's results to come up with the
What do you think Barre spent on just early voting?
It was $512.75 for the 2 elections.
Oh.
So that's,
For how many people?
yeah, it depends. I mean, the
Right.
primary is, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that
So I
many.
mean, and that's only the expenses that they would cover. There were some expenses that they won't cover.
Oh, so yeah, that reimbursement, that was for.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So there's some expenses that they don't cover. So those are some of the things I think, looking forward in the future. I don't have anything, capital plan, we had talked about having on the capital plan, the recodification, that's something that we need to address, I think sooner rather than later. And I think we have funds or,
We don't have anything appropriated right now.
Okay, but are there ARPA money or is there something that we can, where we're,
Yeah, so I have it for the select board to look at their next meeting to determine whether they want to use ARPA for it, but I think the select board has been hesitant to do anything with ARPA until charter eventually someday maybe gets back to us on how much it's gonna cost to build out the rest of the community.
yeah.
So,
And
That
then
was
you
really-
have the estimate from, okay.
yeah, so I have that in the board.
Remind me what, I probably asked this before, but what is codification?
Codification is so basically, it's all of our town bylaws, rules, regulations for the town. It's basically like the town of Barre's Mass General Law.
Oh, okay.
But it's like our rules and regulations and bylaws and everything that governs our community. So it's also like our town meeting legal actions and things things that we adopt. It's all of our roads, our streets, whether they're public, private. So we have that available, that's, I have it posted to the website. And again, that's through general code, so if you ever needed to look something up, as far as our bylaws, we have E-Code 360, which is our town's codification. I started that project in 1994, and it was done, it was accepted by the town, I think, several years later. We finally got it accepted. It got into the, once everything got accepted, there was two ways that we had to approach it. And one was either to go through and go line for line for line, all of any changes throughout the thing with the Attorney General's office. Or we could submit it to town meeting to accept the town code as a replacement to all of our bylaws, and that's what we did back then. So the town code is our standing document for our records. And every time we go to town meeting, every bylaw, any chapter and section that we accept, any road change, any of those types of things need to be sent into the code company after I have to send it to the Attorney General's office, like zoning bylaws, general bylaws. They get sent to the Attorney General's office for approval. Once they get approved, then they go into the code book and it gets updated online and everything.
So that's probably why in '23, it was zero, you had zero budget.
Well,
And now so you got it,
well,
because
no.
there were no changes in the bylaws?
Yeah, it does. It varies from year to year. So codification is really an ongoing thing. I budget for it and we go forward. It pays for the contract, our yearly contract and maintenance. And then whatever legislation we have, we never know how much it's gonna be. It could be more, it could be less, going up and down. But we've had so many supplements now that it's time, and state laws have changed so much that a lot of the bylaws and rules that we have on the books right now are in conflict with, a state law or something else. So we really need to have a revision. So what we're looking at doing is hiring the company that did the original, they'll take our current code book and they will have their attorneys and everything go through with the Massachusetts statutes and laws, and they'll go through and they'll redo the whole code and they'll pull out anything that is conflicting and make sure that we have a current book, that nothing was omitted or should have been, discontinued.
I get it.
And the thing is when we go to town meeting, we say, oh, we might have an article on the warrant to rescind an article, right? I move to rescind Article 5 of 1992, and that's it. Well, what the heck was that? So we gotta go back and look, and then like, oh my gosh, we just rescinded maybe a bylaw or a chapter and section that allowed us to do something that now we can't do anymore. So we need to make sure that, so there are legal repercussions that could happen. So I think moving forward, it's been a long enough span of time where it's time to do a recodification. We've gotten the quote, I think it was $12,000, between $12,000 and $15,000 he quoted us at, to go through and and that's right, that's the whole, page for page, recode and.
Now, is that gonna be paid, you trying to pay that out of the codification maintenance, or are you looking to do separate?
No, we're
ARPA
hoping
I
funds?
was gonna do separate funds.
Funds.
If it's done this year, it would need to be done out of separate funds, but that is another option, is that, kind of carrying forward, a balance and building up that codification maintenance budget over like 2 or 3 years, and then
And you can do
doing,
it every 5 years.
yeah.
Cause it is a revolving account, right, and you have, right now, there's 4,400 in there.
I don't know if it is a revolving account technically.
Technically, I don't think it's a
I don't
revolving
think we've
account,
ever
but I think
established it
it,
as one.
no,
Then
but I
it
think what
sticks.
But we
the,
have carried it over.
Yeah, the balance
Yeah.
carries forward.
Yeah.
So that might be another strategy to
Yeah, I have to
approach
encumber
it.
the money
Yep,
every year.
every year, right.
In order to do that. And that's, to answer your question, I had money left in the budget from the previous year, because we didn't have the legislation. So we ended up zeroing out that line item because I just carried over what I had and that was sufficient going forward.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
Just needed to recollect.
So that account still, right, as of last budget, it still had 3,200 in it. You think you're gonna
Yeah,
use that
I actually
3,200?
do because we had a zoning change. And that's the other thing too, I also was, like for zoning,
Mhm.
I was able to get from the planning board a couple of they were nice enough to give me some of the LPA hours. I think it's the LPA.
Yep.
Is that the appropriate term? So I was able to get that, and Central Mass Regional Planning Commission was able to do my map and redo the map for me.
Oh, okay.
And everything, so I have map, now I just gotta get it to the code company to do it, because now we've changed our zoning. So I
Gonna
do
use-
have some
Yep.
legislation, I don't know what it's gonna cost, I just haven't had time to get that in to them yet. But before the end of the year, some of that money will definitely be expended towards the bylaw changes. So, other than that, that's,
Okay, we got the election expense, obviously 24, we got primary.
the
General
election,
election, yeah.
yeah. Election expense was cut last year, so and I asked Jean to get me a printout of my expenses from this year, because I don't balance with Jean on our balance as of right now. So I am waiting to find out from her where that discrepancy is. But as of right now, I was showing a negative balance already in the election account because we cut, if you remember, we cut the elections budget, figuring we were gonna refund it back at the special town meeting, which we haven't had. So we're going into this election in a deficit before we even start payroll. So that's gonna be a big change.
Well, not according to the last budget warrant though, right? That was.
Well, that's what Ellen is saying,
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
that
it
her, what Ellen has documented as expenditures out of that account does not match with what Jean shows on the expenditure sheets that we receive.
And so that 26 you have in the 23 final.
No, that's what the town meeting appropriated.
Yep.
That's not what I had requested.
Okay.
Right,
It was cut down to 26.
to make the school
With the
budget work.
expectation that it would be, the remainder of that would have been funded at a special town meeting.
Which one
But
I have
they-
until next month.
Yep.
Yeah,
Month from,
right. So, and I don't know, I mean, I don't know how, I have no idea how you want to finance that. Whether we want to put it on the special town meeting, or
That
whether
warrant
they're going to
closed,
try
right?
to take it at the end of the year from whatever accounts they have left over.
yeah, it'll just be at the end of the year, because what ended up happening was that the school's budget, we had to make work because the school, or the town meeting voters approved the school's budget before the general fund budget, so we had to make some adjustments. But, we had a feeling that the school's budget was actually gonna be voted by the other towns at a lower number. Those suspicions came true, and there was about a $50,000 difference in between what we voted and what we actually have to pay to the school. So within that 50,000, we're going to plug the holes that we had to make in other departments. So that's where that will all shake out there. Whether it's done based off of a technicality at the town meeting, or whether it's done, at the end of the year when the funds are transferred between the two accounts.
Yeah.
What does it cost the town to do, like, we're doing a special town meeting in April, right? And then just to do another annual town meeting in a month and a half later? What's the cost of the town to run a special?
I always budget $1,000 per town meeting,
Okay.
because we have any legal advertisements that we may need to think of. We have the election workers setting in, we gotta set up the poll pads. We have the warrant postings. We have, I don't know what else we have. But that's generally,
And the regular,
and I think the biggest thing is like that, the legal notices
yeah,
are required.
and the annual town election, that's about, is that about the same or is that more? Because you gotta pay them election workers, right? for that.
Oh, God, the town election's way more expensive. Yeah, because the town meeting, we're only doing 2 hours,
Okay.
maybe, it's a
Yeah.
2-hour meeting. For an election, we're running 2 precincts, 2 separate polling locations with 20 employees and at least, and then our police, we gotta have police at each precinct
Mhm.
at detail rate. And then if they're over their 8-hour, whatever, then it's time and a half at detail rates. That gets really expensive. We have, all of the codification of the, image cast machines, which is it's expensive. We have the costs of our poll pads and getting those up and running. We have the costs of, the AutoMark, which is our handicap accessibility, machine, which is a whole separate, program and codification, a different company, it's not even the same company. Town elections are more expensive because we have to pay for the ballots. State elections, the state pays for the ballots, so that's a huge cost, to a town election versus, so if we would have a special election for one thing, I always, it's $10,000 easy for, depending
election,
on,
yeah.
depending on what you're, if you're gonna have early voting, like this town election here, the selectmen opted out of early voting, which is good,
Yeah.
and financially good.
How much do you
because
think the
we
town
don't have
saved
to.
by doing that?
We
Rough estimate.
Yeah, we probably saved, for the town election, I'm guessing, we would have only had to have done minimal hours, so probably at least 1,000, at least 1,000.
And was the
for-
town mandated to do that
Week.
before, like with COVID, to have the?
No, just 2023 that is made it mandated for local elections. It wasn't, they made it so that we had to opt out.
Opt out, okay, and that's what the select board did.
Everything is opt-out now, and that's, your voter registration, we have been inundated with, calls and residents that are very upset because they got registered to vote, because they went to the RMV, they did change their license or whatever, so once they opt out to vote, once they go to do something to vote, it's no longer opting in. They're not checking a box, I want to register. There's automatically, if they're not registered, they're getting registered. And then the only way that they can unregister themselves is to come into the town clerk's office and file a written statement to remove them from the voting list that they didn't even want to go on. So,
It's a lot.
and you can see where they're very upset when they
Oh, yeah.
come in, and some of them, some religions don't allow them to vote, or don't, there's different types of, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
any reason, they just don't want to be, never wanted to be a voter, and now poof, they're a voter, and it's up to them to undo it. So we're getting a lot of feedback, feedback from the public from that, and the cost is going, municipalities, it's driving them through the roof, because for every voter registration that we get in our pending queue from the RMV, we have to mail a hard copy notice to them, telling them that there's been a change to their registration.
Mm.
So then we get the phone call saying, well, I didn't change anything, why am I getting a notice? I've been living in this town for 30 years, and you just sent me a notice saying that I changed my address. And it's because, they tweaked it because it was, something wrong with the address, and they got the note, it automatically generates the notice. So we're sending out, I'm not kidding, when I send out probably a minimum of 50 notices a week
Wow.
because of all of these changes. And
And that cost comes on the town, that's not
that's
reimbursable.
No. So the postage costs, I'm sure, have gone up. because of all of that, all of those notices and stuff. And then we also have to send them a vote by mail application to every brand new voter. So we have to weed through and figure out who's a first-time voter, and then send them a mail-in application because the law requires us to. And like, we don't even have mail-in voting this year. But I'm still required to send out a notice. So that confuses the heck out of them even more. And I'm like, so.
I'd be confused. What's going on here?
Okay.
So anyways, that's another change that
Yeah.
has happened. So elections, what I was asking for is the 37,750, and that could be reduced by roughly $2,800 if we do the no voting, if the selectmen were to opt out. But again, it's gonna be the selectmen's call whether we opt in or opt out. So do we want to not include it in the budget? And
That's for the national elections you're talking, correct? The
for
primary.
the town, yes, for the,
Opt
it'd be
out.
for the town election.
They might get more feedback from voters on that than on local elections. One thing, I'm not sure. Like, what was the response on early voting?
Early voting for the elections, for the primary and the general elections next year, for all the state elections and federal, we have to do early
Oh,
voting.
okay.
It's not on
This is
the
just
option.
local.
That's just
The
okay.
only choice that we have is for our own local elections.
Oh, okay. So that $2,800 would be if they did the same. So every year they would have to opt out.
Yes.
It's not like a one blanket.
And it's every
Okay.
election. So if we end up with a special debt exclusion election,
Yep.
if we end up with a special override, whatever,
Yep.
it's per election that we have to go through that process,
Okay.
and it's very time sensitive
Yeah.
too. There's only so many days that they have
Yes.
to be able to follow all that through.
Yep.
All
I know that it's getting late, so I just wanted to point out the elections for that. So that's the 37,750 is what I was requesting for that. I level funded everything else in hopes that, I mean, I know that we're got a debt exclusion, we're hoping to free up some money. But
Yeah.
the other increases, I have salary increases, I just wanted to point that out as well. There was an error for the 2023, under my salary item, should have been listed as 65,745, that's what I'm currently getting now. And I think it was listed incorrectly on the sheet, so I just want to make sure that you guys have the right for that for FY '23. And I did request an increase for FY '24. The increase that I requested for FY '24 was for just an increase, because I just think that the position needs to be adjusted to be more competitive, and with everything that, the changes that have taken place and everything, I think we need to revisit that and bump that up.
So the number you have for 23 on your document doesn't match what's in the
Right.
expenditure report.
Yep.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
because the COLA
The COLA was, yeah.
missed out. Like that was, yeah, the COLA was.
Okay, so that's gonna
Inadvertently.
expense out at the
Yes.
65.
Yeah,
It-
it shouldn't be
should.
much.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
only be like $1,500 or
Yeah,
$2,000.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that was the only things there, and then there was minor increases to, I think, Mary Ann's.
Yep.
And that was just, it was minimal, it was to get her on the step 8, the new step 8 number,
Yep.
where she should be. Oh, and Kay is my brand new clerk, who is gonna go to a step 1 from a step 0 to a step 1.
Oh, so there is
Now-
an even number, if you count zero.
Zero.
Yeah. No,
There's a brand
that's
new
steps.
employee.
The steps
Oh.
go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The classifications go 1, 3, 5, 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
There's no even numbers there.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ellen. Is there any other questions for Ellen? I appreciate everything that you do. I mean,
Thank you.
you guys don't have an easy job down there, that's for sure.
It's a lot.
No, it's just getting more and more, like I said, they're adding more and more, and it's getting a lot more complicated, and a lot more involved in every area. I always think of the town clerk's office as multiple departments, because when you go to the city, you have an elections commission, and then you have a vitals division.
Yeah.
And then you have the city clerk, who manages all of your all of your records and everything else. So they're like 3 huge chunks. And trying to get the help, like Kay's been fantastic, but finding the time to sit with her and train her on everything. And of course now, everything is computerized and digitized on the state's world. So there's a username and a user password for this, and you've got to have credentials set up, and you have to have training before they'll give you the credentials.
Yeah.
So there's like all of these things that just take time. And you're kind of like dependent on them to move forward. So,
Great.
but I thank all of you as well. You guys are all volunteers. So if you guys ever want to ditch the finance committee, come work elections. Think about it.
Step up.
Just kidding.
Maybe when I retire, if I'm still in these parts. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Will.
And before we close out, I do want to, publicly thank Jessica, for her time as town administrator. Taught me a lot as I came into the finance committee, shortly after, I think you started, right?
Yeah,
And
not too
then-
long.
And so, I mean, from my point of view, you've been doing a tremendous job, a true asset to the town that we're going to be losing, but I'm sure you're going to bring a great wealth of knowledge and aspirations to your new position, and I wish you the absolute best.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
And thank you all. It's been a great to work with you
Thank you.
guys.
Definitely our loss in their game.
Is it like this? What's the standard length of time a town administrator stays in
5
town?
years, 5 years, come on now.
We
Yeah.
gotta,
More.
We're in a new, and I don't think it's unique to this position, but nobody stays in their jobs for a long time anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
true.
one of the
And
one
it's
of
such
the
a big
challenges.
job to learn.
Now, where are you
going?
The Department of Revenue. So so I'll be working for the state as basically a consultant for cities and towns.
So will we be in your district? This town be in your district?
Unfortunately, state ethics laws prohibits me from working
What?
on.
You're quitting this job.
What do you got, like 24 months or something like that?
Oh, is that what it is?
Well, sometimes it's for eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is it eternity?
And
Wow.
for most of the
Oh,
stuff that I do here, I'm kind of involved with everything.
Video,
So
Yeah.
I can't.
The forever ban.
The forever ban. Yeah.
Forever ban, wow.
Okay.
See you if you hear luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but
I
to
am.
answer your question, I mean, I think
Thank you.
it's the same thing with, Jessica's position as you see all the other departments talk about. It's hard to keep folks for a long period of time, and it's labor, and we're not a corporation.
It's
So
a
do you-
number of reasons, right? So it's like, for me, it wasn't necessarily pay. It was more like I live 45 minutes away from here, and I have, 2 dogs that are my children. So it's like it's hard to be away from them all day. So and the job that I'm going to is going to be a remote job. So it's just like being able to be home and be able to be with my dogs. It's like so a lot of it can
So the
tie
traveling
back
and
to
everything is huge.
yes, it can tie back to lifestyle. Pay is, for a lot of people, pay is an issue. But yeah, there's just a number of different reasons why people just kind of tend
Breaking
to.
with the finance committee till 9:30 on a Tuesday evening.
I wouldn't be doing anything else on a Tuesday. Like I'll say, other than maybe walking my dog, I wouldn't be doing much else on a Tuesday. But yeah, so it's been a pleasure to work with everybody, and I've learned so much here in the 3 years that I've been here, and that's. A lot of things that I've learned has really inspired me to want to move on and work with the state and be able to work with a lot of cities and towns try and address the problems that we all face. So, yeah.
Excellent.
yeah.
You'll do great.
Wow.
All right.
That doesn't mean that I will not, despite what the ethics say, like, I'll always be a phone call away from you guys.
We're not on a video. So what are we doing from here on after the 31st?
We're gonna have.
I can give you guys a little sneak peek on what happens
Yeah.
after now.
Oh.
So the select board hired an interim town administrator. His name is Greg Ballyconis. We'll call him Greg B because we have a Greg A on this select board. And so he will be taking over. He's a retired town administrator from Dudley. So he's worked in small towns. He's been a town administrator, so he kind of understands the role. And so he'll be here 2 days a week, Mondays and Tuesdays, and then he'll work 1 day remotely. And then he'll be here through at least the end of the fiscal year. Hopefully by the start of mid-July, early August, there will be a permanent. The route that the select board takes to choose a permanent is still up in the air, whether they just decide to do it in-house or they hire an executive firm. I think there's mixed opinions on what they do next. So, yeah, but I'm sure you guys will all be, at least one member of the finance committee will be involved in that next step. So, yep. But as far as meetings go, you only have one department meeting left, and that's the schools. So Monty Tech in Quabbin will be April 11. April 25th is the special town meeting. And so I anticipate that there's probably going to be one extra meeting. Unless you guys can probably do special town meeting stuff at the next meeting, because that warrant will already be all set and posted. So
Yeah.
you guys will probably be able to discuss and make your votes then. And then after that, it's really just kind of final budget development. And the end of May will be your public hearing, and then town meeting 2 weeks after that. So,
Yeah, well, it's hard to believe, but it's in the final stretch.
Sounds easy.
It's already
It
in
feels
the
like it
final
goes faster every year.
I know.
Right? Like,
I was like,
Didn't we just?
we were
did
talking.
we just start?
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean we only have one department meeting left? I was like, do we now this year there was a bunch of departments that we haven't met with. Like we're so dispatch we hope to catch next meeting.
Yes.
And we got the school that they're always a little bit lengthier. Very, very detailed. We left out Chief Rogowski because it'd probably be 10:30
Oh my gosh.
here.
Probably still be on the fire
We would
department.
be. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I mean, but it's very, he's very detailed, which is awesome.
Yeah. Somebody who's passionate about his department.
Exactly. And then, well, there was a question, so did the warrant close out yet for the special? So that's all closed out, we'll have it, we'll get access to everything for our next meeting?
Yes, the attorney is reviewing it right now. The select board will approve it on Monday, and then it will go out for posting, so you guys will be able to review it at the next meeting.
Okay.
It's really short, right? It's the 250th committee, it's the capital ban, and as a debt exclusion. So hopefully, on Monday, the debt exclusion will pass, and then at the special town meeting, that's when, the town can vote to solidify the debt exclusion. And then the other items are the free cash to offset the capital ban for the FY23 budget, free cash to offset the interim treasurer collector services, which was about $55,000, and then the fire truck and the ambulance. And that's it.
And we're doing all that at special? Okay. Yeah, it's just special, it's like usually it's tough to get 50 people out.
Oh, well, that.
Yeah, those are all 2/3 votes? Or simple
The
majority?
Free cash is simple majority. So anything with free cash is simple majority. Anything that has to do with borrowing is 2/3. That's one of the questions I have for the attorney is the debt exclusion. I think it's a simple majority at the ballot and a 2/3 majority at town meeting, but I'm not 100% sure.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, all right, well, thank you again, Jessica,
Yeah,
and
thank
if
you.
we're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Oh,
We just need a motion.
I motion to close the meeting.
I second the meeting.
9:30.
All in favor to leave?
I